Chapter 301. Among the gods, men were high and mighty, especially men with power and influence. Women were their foil. Not to mention 3,000 beauties, there were even several hundred people in the harem of the princes. If they had to take turns, a woman could only enjoy sex once a year. If she suddenly died one day, the princes might not even remember her name. Apart from those who were favored, for example, even if he was favored, he would still be envied. Compared to that prince, Yi Hong might be lacking a lot, but he also had his outstanding points. Tonight, Yi Hong had taught himself a lesson. Perhaps people really couldn't be judged by their appearances. Have you thought about it? Wei Chang asked. Think about what? 2 more months. Zishan did not say anything. Initially, she had thought that it would be good for her to free herself from these people, so that she would not be threatened by these people. But when she saw how sad Yi Hong was just now, she wanted to comfort him. She really wasn't worth it. Wei Chang smiled and said, "You've never been in love before, right?" Zishan, in the past I have never talked about it before, and his honor is the same as well. However, only after talking about it did I know that the feeling of wanting to treat the other party well and live together with her properly is truly a very good feeling. I feel that his honor is very generous towards his subordinates and love is very sweet. His honor is willing to share this sweetness with his subordinates, but do you think that your deities will share it with you? Yi Hua, who was currently smoking beside the windowsill, choked on the smoke. I, the Supreme Overlord, just wanted to, forget it, I, the Supreme Overlord, just wanted to share the taste of love with my subordinates. Seeing that Zishan didn't say anything, Wei Chang continued, this little Red's family condition isn't very good. He doesn't have any education and he doesn't know how to speak. When he was young, he had been hanging out with Big Brother. Although the two of them aren't blood-related brothers, they are closer than blood-related brothers. Actually, the reason why I said so much is because I want you to understand one thing, for a man to be willing to sacrifice himself for you, it really isn't easy. You have 2 choices right now. 1. With her primordial spirit dissipating, Little Red would naturally slowly accept this reality. Of course, she would also live in guilt. 2. Live on, perhaps for 2 months, perhaps for the rest of your life. It's up to you. Looking at Yi Hong, who was emotional, Zishan remained silent. After a long time, Zishan slowly said, All right, I know what you mean. Zishan's expression sank. I haven't even said anything and you already know what I am going to say. Who are you trying to fool? But it was good that he didn't say it out loud. It's a common problem for gods to want to save face. Then I'll help you again. Wei Chang smiled and shook his head. Zishan pouted coquettishly and said, Who wants face? At this moment, the green and red brothers were flying towards them. Both of them saw Wei Chang. Yi Hong immediately knelt in front of Wei Chang and begged, Uncle Wei, can you save Zishan? Zishan, who was standing beside Wei Chang, had a complicated expression on her pretty face. Why are you doing this? I can't save her, Wei Chang said lightly. Yi Hong suddenly felt powerless. Even Uncle Wei couldn't do anything? But you can save her. Wei Chang's words immediately pulled Yi Hong from hell to heaven. Even Zishan, who was in her nascent divinity form, was shocked. Knowing that there was a chance to save Zishan, Yi Hong became very excited. Uncle Wei, what should I do? Wei Chang lightly said, That depends on how much you are willing to pay. Wei Chang thought to himself, so this is how it feels to do this kind of thing. No wonder his honor likes it so much, this is indeed very interesting. His honor had successfully led Wei Chang astray. No matter what, I am willing to pay, Yi Hong said firmly. Big Brother Green let out a sigh. First love has this kind of magical power. Youngsters are completely unable to resist this kind of attack. To save her, you might lose half of your life force. Are you still willing to do it? Wei Chang asked gravely. Yi Hong's face became joyful. Only half? Can I give her a bit more? I want her to live a bit longer. What simple words, want her to live a bit longer? Wei Chang let out a sigh. Seems like I spoke too lightly. If I had known earlier, I would have been more vicious. His honor has done well, I have to learn more from him in the future. Hearing Yi Hong's words, Zishan smiled. Want me to live a bit longer? I have already lived for too long, but this sentence sounds so simple and honest, what a fool. Little Red, you have to know one thing, even if you save her, she might not appreciate your kindness. Wei Chang said faintly with his hands behind his back, seemingly imitating his honor. Zishan, who was at the side, glared ferociously at Wei Chang. I'm not as cold-blooded as you. Yi Hong naturally knew, but she still didn't hesitate. Uncle Wei, I know that Zishan will not like me, but I only want her to live, to be able to take a look at her every day is enough. Wei Chang let out a deep sigh, and Zishan, who was at the side, had a grave expression on her face. "Uncle Wei, I have another request," Yihang said again. "Speak." "Uncle Wei, please keep this matter a secret. I don't want Zishan to know about it." Wei Chang and Big Brother Green were puzzled. Such a heroic deed, if I don't tell her about it, how am I supposed to obtain the heart of the beauty? Big Brother Green wished he could raise his hand and slap Zishan. "You have already sacrificed so much. If you don't let others know about it, you must be stupid." What? Wei Chang was very curious about what Yihang was thinking. Zishan was also very curious about Yihang's answer. Yihang scratched the back of his head embarrassedly and said while stammering, I'm afraid that Zishan will laugh at me." Everyone was speechless. What kind of logic is this? Why would Zishan laugh at you? This is a typical male chauvinist, wanting face. This is the type of person who likes someone to death but is unable to say it out. Furthermore, I don't want the other party to know about how much I have sacrificed, fearing that the other party would laugh at me after knowing about it. Therefore, I might as well keep it a secret. Wei Chang looked towards Zishan, who was at the side, and discovered that Zishan's expression wasn't as stiff as before. If Zishan's expression is still as cold as before after hearing what I said, there's no need to redeem her expression. "Alright, I promise you that I will help you keep this secret," Wei Chang said. Yihang looked towards his big brother. Big Brother Green said helplessly, "Alright, Big Brother won't say anything." Yihang was able to be at ease, but little did he know that Zishan had been looking at him all this while. "Uncle Wei, how do I save Zishan?" Yihang asked excitedly. Wei Chang let out a breath. "Do you remember what I taught you? Just transfer the aura into your body and it will do." "So simple?" Wei Chang nodded his head with a smile. "Alright, I will be going back first. You two should also go back and rest early, and remember to take your wedding photos tomorrow." Yihang was extremely happy right now, and I understand. "Little brother, go back home and save Zishan," Big Brother Green reminded. Yihang carried on to Zishan's corpse, then disappeared into the night sky together with his big brother. Yihua flicked away the cigarette but, then revealed an arc on the corner of his mouth. "Ali, it's time to sleep with Daddy." Ali, I still want to watch for a while, just a while," Dong Huangli began acting coquettishly. Chapter 302. Inside the villa, Yihang carried Zishan, who was gradually stiffening, and placed her on the bed. Soon after, Yihang lightly moved aside the hair on Zishan's forehead. So beautiful. Zishan, who was under her primordial spirit, was standing at the side. Her expression was very complicated. No one knew what she was thinking. Yihang stretched out her hands and was about to press it. When Zishan saw Yihang's action, she scolded, "Where are you going to press it?" That's right, Yihang was about to press it on her chest. Don't they always do this on TV? However, she did not press it. She felt that it was not good, so she retracted her hands. Zishan glared at Yihang. "You're molesting my corpse." Right now, Yihang was thinking, where should I press it? Feels like I'm eating tofu wherever I press it. Looking at those white and slender hands, she swallowed her saliva and grabbed onto them. Zishan, who was at the side, frowned and did not say anything. A faint black fog came out from Yihang's hands and gradually spread to Zishan's arms. Very quickly, the black fog wrapped around Zishan. Xiao Yi also had this kind of black fog in his body. At that time, when his heart was pierced, he was still able to recover. From this, it could be seen how powerful this black fog was. However, this black fog was only a small passive ability of Wei Chang. Zishan's primordial spirit gradually disappeared with a complicated expression. Yihang did not care about anything and continued to transfer as much energy as she could into Zishan's body. The cold and delicate hand in her palm gradually warmed up. This made Yihang overjoyed. Uncle Wei did not lie to her, this is great. 5 minutes later, Zishan's body gradually became rosy. At the same time, she opened her eyes. When Yihang saw that Zishan woke up, she was so scared that she immediately let go of Zishan and retreated to the side. The two of them did not say anything. The atmosphere was very awkward. After a long time, Zishan said faintly, "I'm going to take a bath." After she finished speaking, she stood up and walked into the bathroom. Yihang heaved a sigh of relief. I finally saved her. After making the bed on the floor, Yihang was very excited. After Zishan finished her bath, Yihang also went to take a bath. The smell of blood on her body was very heavy. In the dark bedroom, two hearts were beating slightly. Yihang could not sleep and Zishan could not sleep either. After a while, Zishan said softly, "Yihang, thank you." Seeing that Yihang did not say anything, Zishan mustered up her courage and said, "Yihang, I know what you are thinking. I can promise you that I will be your girlfriend for 2 months, but after 2 months, I hope that you will not save me anymore. I am not worthy of you doing this for me." From the looks of it, Zishan was indeed moved by Yi Hong and was willing to be his girlfriend for 2 months. However, Zishan still refused Yi Hua's order and refused to sleep with Yi Hong. However, who knows what will happen 2 months later. At that time, wasn't Xianxia still very arrogant? And right now, wasn't she still being trained by Yi Hua to be completely obedient? However, Yi Hua was, after all, Yi Hua. He was different from Yi Hong. When Zishan saw that Yi Hong did not reply even after a long time, she furrowed her eyebrows and looked at Yi Hong. Fell asleep, Zishan laughed and closed her beautiful eyes. Yi Hong, who was lying on the mattress on the floor, opened her eyes. She had heard everything just now and was actually very happy. She was so happy that she didn't know what to say. However, when she heard the latter part of the sentence, her heart sank again. Kill her? That was impossible. I owe his honor a debt of gratitude, and she is also the person I like. At most, I will go and beg his honor 2 months later. At most, I will exchange a life for a life. Early morning. Today was a good day for Yi Hong. After all, his honor had already arranged everything for her to take their wedding photos. Just thinking about it makes me a bit excited. However, the prerequisite is that I have to toss all of my worries to the back of my mind. After washing up, Yi Hong brought Zishan and walked out of the villa. Big brother naturally wouldn't be a third wheel. Zishan, what do you want to eat for breakfast? Yi Hong felt that Zishan wasn't that distant from him today. Zishan was even walking side by side with him. Zishan said unhurriedly, "Cold noodles?" Hearing what Zishan said, Yi Hong became even more happy. In the past, I would just casually, all right. After arriving at the city district and alighting from the car in front of a cold noodles shop, they immediately received attention. The little brother Red today was a bit different. His face was still the same and his hairstyle was still the same. However, after what happened last night, he seemed to have become more mature. This was a kind of qualitative change in his temperament, and he no longer looked like a loafer. In actuality, the Red and Green brothers didn't know that the aura within their bodies was slowly changing their bodies. "Boss, 2 bowls of cold noodles, 1 bowl without chili," Yi Hong shouted out. Yesterday he had also brought Zishan to eat cold noodles, but Zishan had picked out all of the chili from the cold noodles. Therefore today Yi Hong became more careful. Zishan didn't have much of an expression on her face, she was very indifferent, but who knew what she was thinking in her heart? Yi Hong didn't take it to heart. It's fine to just watch, at least it's better than losing it. After finishing eating cold noodles, the two went to the studio that had been arranged beforehand. I'm afraid that I will have to spend the entire day shooting indoors. Meanwhile, when those staff members saw Zishan, they were all attracted to her. What a cold and arrogant woman, this little brother is very fortunate. Right now Yi Hong had changed into a black suit, and he looked much more mature. His hairstyle had also changed and he felt as if he had become a completely different person, looking extremely handsome. However, when Yi Hong saw Zishan coming out of the mirror, he couldn't help but stiffen. Although Zishan doesn't have an absolute beauty like the two madams, in my eyes, Zishan is the most beautiful woman in the world. This was the first time Zishan wore a white wedding dress, and when she saw herself in the mirror she was a bit surprised. There are indeed a lot of fun things in the secular world. The two of you come over here, the photographer said with a light smile. Stop looking, if I continue looking, I won't even be able to finish shooting today. Yi Hong and Zishan walked to the front of the set, and each stood on one side. The photographer felt very awkward. Are the two of you here to shoot wedding photos? Why are you standing so far away? Is there an air wall in the middle? The two of you, can you get a bit closer? The photographer said speechlessly. Yi Hong was very nervous. Zishan was also a bit nervous, and her hands were still holding onto the flowers. Seeing that the bride and groom were not moving, the photographer seemed to have sensed something and did not rush them. You come over here. In the end, Zishan still called out to Yi Hong. After getting Zishan's permission, Yi Hong was at ease and stood at the side. But isn't this too formal, too serious? What about on the battlefield? The groom hugged the bride and smiled. The photographer shouted out. Yi Hong didn't dare to recklessly touch Zishan. Hug me, Zishan said lightly. This caused Yi Hong's heart to beat a bit faster. Zishan actually wants me to hug her. My God, I'm not dreaming, right? Groom, don't be embarrassed, the bride has already spoken. Yi Hong took a deep breath. This is even more nervous than cheating in exams. Yi Hong stretched out his hand and lightly hugged onto Zishan's slender waist, then smelled the fragrance that was being emitted out from Zishan's body. So, the world can really be so beautiful. The photographer said with a smile. All right. Smile. Yi Hong was nervous to the point that he couldn't smile anymore. And when Zishan revealed out a faint smile, even the photographer couldn't help but become dazed for a bit. Groom, the bride is already smiling, hurry up and cooperate. Chapter 303. Good, this is the smile. The photographer was very satisfied. Next they took all kinds of photos. He would think about what would happen 2 months later. He had to seize the moment and enjoy every second of every day. Inside the bedroom on the second floor of Leisure Bar, both father and daughter had yet to wake up. Dong Huang Li's entire body was lying on her father's body, and from time to time she would purse her small mouth. The void twisted and the two wives finally returned home. Yi Hua naturally sensed it. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji with a calm expression. Dong Huang Li also sat up and rubbed her big eyes. When she saw her mommy, she pouted her small mouth and helped her daddy get up. Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji were helpless. Both the elder and the younger are angry. However, upon seeing that Yi Hua was able to stand up with the support of the crutches, the two women immediately became joyous. Yi Hua, are you done? Yi Hua, can you leave now? Are you all blind? I, the Supreme Overlord, have already stood up and you all are still asking me. Yi Hua raised his walking stick and took a look at his two wives indifferently, then said calmly, Ali, accompany Daddy to buy breakfast. All right. Dong Huang Li cooperated with her father very well. In actuality, the two of them had already discussed about it. If their mommy were to return, they would use this kind of method to deal with them. Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji laughed bitterly, then held on to their husband's side. Why did you come back? It's so fun outside. Yi Hua said faintly, and his tone was filled with the taste of jealousy. As expected of the vinegar king of the cultivation world, to actually be jealous of the heir. Hubby, even if it was Yi Hua who had sworn to ignore them just a second ago, he still wouldn't be able to endure the two of them acting coquettishly towards him. In the future, if you all dare to go out of the house again, you all can go and kneel on the keyboard. Yi Hua said gravely. If you have the heart to do that, we will kneel to you, Xianxia smiled tenderly. This fellow is only saying it with his mouth. Yi Hua clicked his tongue, then prepared to go to the alley to eat Chinese jianbing. The point was not to eat the pancake but to show off. Didn't that Andy say that I would capsize? Look at him now, his two wives are so obedient, and there's even a cute Ali. Facts have proven that I am never wrong. Sure enough, when the Andy saw Yi Hua, she gave him a thumbs up. The Andy was convinced. Yi Hua was very complacent. I have finally turned the tables. Returning back to the bedroom, Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji fawned on Yi Hua. They gave Yi Hua a massage and even fed him fruits. Yi Hua said magnanimously, I forgive the two of you. Just as he finished speaking, the slender hand on his shoulder disappeared, and the fruit was also put away. You all? Yi Hua was shocked. You guys are too realistic. While holding hands with Dong Huang Baiji, Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji said with a smile, Yi Hua, since you are able to move now, you don't need us to serve you anymore. Let's go and look for you Tong and Zizi to eat chicken, bye-bye. After finished speaking, Yi Hua turned around and left. Only when the door was closed did Yi Hua react. What a lawless woman. Go and kneel on the keyboard for me and you still want to act like you're eating chicken. Eat my food. A week passed by very quickly. During this week, Yi Hua asked the two women what they were doing during those few days. In the end, Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji gave Yi Hua a rough idea of what they were doing during those few days. This caused Yi Hua to be very worried. Recently, I have been preparing to have another child with Baiji. After I recover, I will be able to start working. I, the Supreme Overlord, will definitely put more effort into my child. As long as I don't have another child, I will not give up. When Dong Huang Baiji heard what Yi Hua said, she was immediately startled. Thus, Yi Hua's recovery speed was much faster than anyone else's. For the sake of having a child, Yi Hua was quite diligent. However, there was a happy event that happened today, and it was a happy event for the entire team. And that was his underlings Yi Hong and Zishan's wedding. The two's wedding was the outdoor kind. Originally, Yi Hua wanted to invite the big shots from various regions over, but since his underling said that he wanted to keep a low profile, Yi Hua decided to let him have his way. Other than Death Mage and Sun Fong, who were not present due to inconvenience, everyone else was present. After all, Zhu Tian had only met the two women not too long ago. This time, Zhu Tian turned into his original form and was carried by Yi Zizi. When the women saw such a cute cat, they immediately surrounded Yi Zizi and stroked Yi Zizi. This caused Zhu Tian to feel very annoyed. Today Qingya and Donghuang Baiji were also dressed splendidly. However, they knew that they shouldn't steal the limelight from the bride. Thus the color of their clothes was a bit plain. Lai Gu's 3 celebrities were also the same, each and every one of them was incomparably beautiful. Of course, there was also Wei Chang's little girlfriend, Tang Wei. Right now she was also exuding a faint charm. It really made people sigh. Yi Hua was dressed very cautiously today because today he was acting as the MC. As the boss, I definitely have to host the wedding of my underlings. In the future, every time my underlings get married, I have to be like this too, only then will I be able to show the care and concern of a boss. Standing on the stage and looking at the people below, Yi Hua sighed with emotion. Unknowingly, there were so many more people in the team. In the past, there were always 8 people. Now there were more than 10. There would be more and more of them in the future. Seeing that everyone's face was brimming with smiles, Yi Hua also revealed out a smile that was rarely seen on his face. This feeling is truly great. Let's welcome the bride and groom. Yi Hua stood on the stage and shouted out loudly. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji smiled helplessly. This fellow is even more excited that his little brother is getting married. All of the underlings were very envious of little brother Red. Little brother Red was actually able to get his honor to host his wedding. Just what kind of glory is this? Tang Wei was also very envious. After I graduate, I will also marry Uncle Wayne. Lai Gu's 3 wives were also the same. They were all envious. In actuality, the ones who were the most envious were still Qingya and Donghuang Baiji. They are so concerned about their little brother's wedding, but why aren't they concerned about their own wedding at all? Big Brother Green turned on the music and the wedding march started playing. Donghuang Li could be seen walking at the front while holding onto a flower basket. Donghuang Li's cute little face was bright red, and she seemed to be a bit nervous. Yihang was wearing a red suit today and he looked very handsome. Zishan, who was beside Zishan, was holding onto Yihang's hand. Zishan was wearing a white veil on her head. Yi Hua, who was standing on the stage, felt very gratified. I didn't waste my efforts. All of the underlings also discovered that his honor's change was really big. In the past, if this kind of thing happened, Zishan would have been killed long ago. This kind of thing happens very often. The number of beauties that died in his honor's hands was innumerable, and even the most beautiful women were killed by his honor. And now, not only was Zishan not killed, his honor even gave Zishan a fated marriage. Don't look at it as just a small fated marriage. Didn't his honor still expand his team? As for whether or not Zishan likes Yihang or not, no one knows. However, at least from the looks of it, Zishan doesn't seem to dislike Yihang at all. The two slowly walked onto the stage, and the big brother walked onto the stage while holding onto a plate with the wedding rings on it. Yi Hua coughed lightly. What I want to ask now, I hope that you all can answer truthfully. Chapter 304. Yihang, are you willing to marry her? No matter what happens in the future, we will stick together through life and death. Yi Hua's question was rather simple, but it directly hit the main point. How many people could live and die together? I'm willing, Yihang said firmly. However, Yi Hua was not satisfied and said gravely, a man's voice must be loud. Shout it out. I'm willing. Yi Hua nodded his head. As expected of my underlings. Looking towards Zishan, Yi Hua asked gravely, Zishan, are you willing to marry this man in front of you? No matter what happens in the future, we will live and die together. Right now, everyone who knew what was going on was very nervous. If Zishan were to say that she was not willing right now, she would definitely anger his honor. Needless to say, there was no need to think too much about the consequences. In actuality, the one who was the most nervous was Yihang. The more she interacted with Zishan, the deeper they fell for each other. Furthermore, during the past few days, Zishan had also changed a lot. She really resembles my girlfriend a lot. At the very least, Zishan is no longer fierce towards me. I'm willing. Zishan's gentle voice rang out in the hall. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The happy event did not turn into a bad one. Yihang was so excited that her lips were trembling. She was willing. She was really willing. He suddenly realized that doing anything for her was worth it. Yi Hua was also very satisfied with Zishan's attitude. However, Zishan's gaze had always been on Yihang. Other than Zishan didn't have a good impression of anyone else. Let's exchange rings, Yi Hua said with a light smile. With trembling hands, Yihang picked up the wedding ring and put it on Zishan's hand. Zishan appeared to be much calmer as she placed the wedding ring on Yihang's finger. Alright, I declare it. You two are now legally husband and wife, Yi Hua shouted out. The audience also applauded and Big Brother Green even shed tears. Little brother had finally gotten married. Yi Hua waved his hand indicating for everyone to quiet down, then said, "Do you want to see the groom kiss the bride? Your Honor, when did you become so mischievous? Wasn't he happy?" Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji smiled helplessly. However, they were also able to see Yi Hua's change. He was no longer as cold as before and he had become more humane. "Yes. Ali wants to see, meow." Yi Hua looked at Yi Hong and said, "You have heard everyone's thoughts, right? Don't let the girl take the initiative." Hearing that, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji were very puzzled. "What do you mean by this time? What about the last time?" However, he was quickly attracted by the atmosphere of the scene. The nervous Yi Hong didn't know what to say, while Zishan slowly closed her beautiful eyes. Lai Gu immediately stood on the chair and started whistling. Along with Lai Gu leading the way, everyone started heckling. Looking at this kind of scene, Yi Hua felt that he should hold more events like this in the future. Yi Hong mustered up her courage and gently hugged Zishan. She lifted the white veil and slowly lowered her head to kiss Zishan's tender and beautiful lips. Yi Hua couldn't help but nod his head. This is more like a man. But it was not domineering enough. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Although there weren't any big shots, everyone present could easily destroy them, especially the 4 of the 7 deadly sins. "Don't be in such a hurry to consummate your marriage, I still have a few things that I want to ask you too," Yi Hua said faintly. Everyone couldn't help but be curious as to what His Honor was going to ask. Wei Chang hurriedly noted down what His Honor was going to ask. In the future, His Honor will definitely have to take a test on him. Big Brother Green was also at the side, taking down notes. "Who is going to do the housework in the future?" Yi Hua asked. Everyone, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji rolled their eyes at Yi Hua. "You still have the nerve to ask? Are you afraid that you have already done the housework? In the end, aren't the 2 of us sweeping the floor while you act like a big boss?" "Meh." Yi Hong rushed to answer. Yi Hua's expression sunk. Yi Hua asked again, "Who is going to take the express delivery?" "Meh." Yi Hong rushed to answer again. "There's no need to ask anymore, this is the rhythm of taking care of everything." Yi Hua took a glare at Yi Hong. "Are you even a man? This kind of thing is for women to do, why are you rushing to do it?" Yi Hong naturally understood His Honor's meaning, "But I just want to do it." Yi Hua asked gravely, "Who is going to cook in the future?" "Meh." Zishan said slowly. Yi Hong was startled, but there was happiness within the shock. Yi Hua was very satisfied. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji really wanted to pull their man down. "If you continue to make a fuss like this, others are going to get a divorce." "Who is going to peel the crayfish?" Yi Hua asked. Zishan said slowly, "Me." Yi Hua took a look at his little brother. Men must be domineering, if not how are they going to establish themselves in the family in the future? Little brother Red didn't understand. In actuality, Zishan didn't want Yi Hong to offend Yi Hua. After all, it wasn't worth it for Zishan to offend Yi Hua for herself. Meanwhile, Wei Chang and Big Brother Green took note of His Honor's question. The last event, tossing a bouquet. Those who aren't married, come and snatch it, whoever manages to snatch it will be the next lucky person. I will be the host of the wedding. Yi Hua, who was so happy, almost let it slip. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji could be seen walking up first. Yi Hua glared at them fiercely. "Why are you 2 coming up to join in the fun?" Xianxia rolled her eyes at Yi Hua. "We want to get married. Right now, even your wife is going up, do the others still dare to go up?" Yi Hua shouted out, "Who is that Tang Wei? Come up. Also, the 3 of you come up too. Wei Chang and Lai Gu, the 2 of you come up too. Also, Little Green, come up too. Brother-in-law, I want to come up too." Qing Yutong shouted out excitedly. "Since everyone is going up, it isn't too appropriate for me to sit together with a minor, right?" Izizi was sucking on her lollipop while hugging onto the board Ju Tian. "It's none of your business, go to the side." Yi Hua glared at his sister-in-law. "Your big sister is joining in the fun, you come up too." Qing Yutong pouted her small mouth. "I don't even have a boyfriend yet." Yi Hong was very nervous. These big brothers are all standing at the back, waiting for Zishan to toss a bouquet. Meanwhile, Zishan also felt that this group of people was different. Within the seriousness there was a hint of laughter. They seemed to be very happy together, and the smile on everyone's face was very genuine. Lai Gu shouted out loudly, "Don't snatch with me, I want to get married." "Lai Gu, if you dare to snatch my bouquet, you are dead for sure." Xianxia shouted out with a smile. "Lady boss, this is the boss's order." Wei Chang laughed out loudly, "Lai Gu, your boss wants to stew you." The few beauties on the stage immediately laughed endlessly. Yi Hua felt that the atmosphere was about right and he shouted out, Snatch properly, don't cheat. Everyone naturally wouldn't cheat, after all, cheating wouldn't work. With her back facing everyone, Zishan tossed the bouquet with her hands. The bouquet drew an arc in the air. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji were standing too close to the front, and the bouquet was already above the two people's heads. Wei Chang and Lai Gu could be seen immediately jumping up to snatch the bouquet, and in the process of snatching the bouquet was sent flying away. Qing Yutong's eyes lit up. I can snatch the bouquet even though I'm sitting down? At this moment, a gust of wind blew over, and the bouquet actually flew towards Zhu Tian, who was in Yi Zizi's embrace. Zhu Tian's brows wrinkled, then stretched out his paw and slapped towards the bouquet. When everyone saw this, they thought, what a temperamental cat. Chapter 305. Big Brother Green didn't react for a moment, but when he did, he was excited. First, he did an impromptu Thomas spin and the turf was almost gone. Looking at Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji rolling their eyes at him, Yi Hua felt that there was nothing he could do about it. Who asked the two of you to be so stupid and stand at the very front? At the end of the ceremony, everyone began to chat. The women were grouped together and the men were grouped together. The women were all asking the bride special questions, and Tang Wei also wanted to learn a bit of experience. After that, they started to talk about cosmetics. Actually, at their level, cosmetics were actually not very useful. As for Yi Hua and the others, they weren't discussing such a small matter. Your Honor, according to Sun Fang's news, a lot of foreigners have appeared in the south, and it seems like they want to take advantage of us. Wei Chang said gravely. Everyone remained silent. If Yi Hua didn't speak, how could they possibly continue the conversation? Yi Hua drank a mouthful of champagne, then let them have it. After we are full, we will catch them all in one go. Lai Gu praised, Your Honor sure has a good plan. Just when they thought that they had succeeded, Your Honor immediately shouted at them, Your Honor is formidable. Lai Gu, you even know how to speak now? Yi Hua laughed lightly. Lai Gu scratched his chin embarrassedly. Recently, I have been reading books and gaining knowledge. That would be for the best. Knowledge is power, the two of you should also learn more. Yi Hua looked towards the Green and Red brothers and said. The Green and Red brothers naturally agreed to His Honor's request. Following His Honor, we will definitely be able to eat and drink well. Yi Hong had a look that seemed like she had something to say but didn't dare to say it. Yi Hua asked curiously, Xiao Hong, if you have something to say, just say it. Why are you stuttering like a man? Your Honor, are you able to take back that 2 months deadline? Yi Hong asked while trembling with fear. When this question came out, Wei Chang and Lai Gu's complexion immediately darkened. Even Big Brother Green also scolded me for being an idiot. You want His Honor to take back what he said. Don't you want to live anymore? Or are you too full of yourself? Yi Hong knew that she had said the wrong thing. Yi Hong lowered her head and scolded herself for being an idiot in her heart. His Honor is already treating me so well, and yet I still have the cheek to raise a request. When Zishan saw that Yi Hong had her head lowered, and the other people's expressions were extremely ugly, Zishan could roughly guess what Yi Hong was talking about. Yi Hua patted on Yi Hong's shoulder, then walked towards his wives without saying anything. Lai Gu shook his head and walked away as well. This is also your wedding day. If it was any other time, His Honor would definitely give you a scolding. The reason why Yi Hua patted on Little Brother Red's shoulder was because he wanted to tell Little Brother Red that I, the Supreme Overlord, can bestow and can also take back. Don't forget your place. Xiao Hong, don't beg His Honor for this matter anymore, if not, the consequences will be very serious. Wei Chang said gravely. Right now, in this kind of situation, Zishan could only save herself and get pregnant at the fastest speed possible. However, Zishan wouldn't do such a thing, and this caused Yi Hong to have no choice but to anger His Honor. This is a very troublesome problem. After saying that, Wei Chang went to accompany his girlfriend, leaving Big Brother Green behind. Little brother, don't be discouraged. Enlighten Zishan and strive to get her pregnant as soon as possible. That way nothing will happen. How could Yi Hong not know about her big brother's persuasion? But she didn't want to force it. She was actually very satisfied with her current life. After chatting for a long time, everyone went back to their own home. Yi Hua finally knew what was called reap what you sow. Right now he was asking questions in his ears. Yi Hua, when are you going to marry us? Yi Hua, do you not want to marry us? Yi Hua, do you have another woman outside again? Papa, Ali also wants to get married. It seemed that he couldn't let them attend weddings in the future. However, as for getting married, Yi Hua had naturally thought about it before. My wedding with them must be an unprecedentedly grand spectacle. However, that still requires a bit of time because I have yet to conquer the Sea of Stars. Zijin City. Qing family's villa. A handsome man drove a Bentley and stopped in front of the villa. The man took a lot of gifts from the car, then walked to the door and knocked. The door of the house could be seen being opened, and the woman who appeared was precisely Xianxia's mother, Zihan. Looking at the unfamiliar handsome man in front of her, Zihan asked in confusion, "You are? And Z, don't you remember me? I am Qin Xuanzong. When I was young I used to play at your house. When I was studying I would come back home with Xianxia every day. At that time I was very fat." As he spoke, Qin Xuanzong puffed up his cheeks, proving that he was still the big fatty from before. Zihan suddenly recalled, back then when she was in Long'an City, there was a family with the surname Chen who lived in the neighbor's house. When she was young she remembered that he was still chubby. It had been a few years since she last saw him, and he had become so handsome. "Oh, it's little Chen. Please come in," Zihan said with a smile. "Thank you, Aunt." Qin Xuanzong changed into slippers and walked into the house. Everything feels so familiar, as if it happened just yesterday. "Aunt Z, is Xianxia not at home?" Although Qin Xuanzong knew why Xianxia wasn't at home, he still couldn't help but ask. Perhaps history has changed. Upon mentioning her daughter, Zihan let out a deep sigh. Seeing that Aunt's expression wasn't good, Qin Xuanzong knew that history had not changed. Xianxia was still following that bastard Long Outyen. "Aunt, quickly sit." Qin Xuanzong placed down the gifts and helped Zihan to sit down. "Looking at this handsome man in front of me, at least it is better than that Yihua who has a stern face, right? Why is Xianxia so stubborn?" Zihan let out a heavy sigh. "Little Qin, to tell you the truth, Xianxia is living outside in a fit of pique again. As expected, that Long Outyen is really inhumane. Not only did he harm Xianxia, he also harmed Qing Yutong. He is simply inhumane. Brother, ever since Yihua appeared your memory has been messed up. Long Outyen is still struggling in his cave. Xianxia's temper is a bit bad, but she still cares about the family." Qin Xuanzong naturally had to put in a good word for Xianxia. Zihan still had some impression of the little fatty in the past. At that time he was shy and bashful. Now he is so tall and handsome. He is indeed a good match for Xianxia. "Stop putting in a good word for her, she is infuriating me to death." Qin Xuanzong laughed lightly, appearing to be very magnanimous. This made Zihan feel that this person is more stable than Long Outyen. "Little Qin, why did you suddenly move back then?" Zihan asked curiously. Qin Xuanzong's expression stiffened. Back then he didn't move, but rather his entire family was exterminated. Back then he wasn't there, so he managed to escape the calamity. After that, he concealed his identity and lived in seclusion. However, he still paid attention to Xianxia. However, after hearing the news of Xianxia's suicide, Qin Xuanzong became addicted to alcohol, and in the end he jumped into a river and died. In the end, he reincarnated into a different world, became a demon emperor, and returned. Qin Xuanzong laughed lightly. "Auntie, it's all because of the family's business problems. Back then, I left in a hurry and didn't even have the time to greet Xianxia." It's fine, I will call Xianxia back right now. I am really worried about her staying in the south all day long." After speaking, Zihan picked up her phone and called her daughter. Right now, Xianxia was currently being pressed down by Yihua, and Yihua was using all of his strength to enjoy Xianxia's cherry lips. "Stop messing around, my phone is ringing." "Don't answer it," Yihua said gravely. "I am currently enjoying myself and no one is allowed to disturb me." "Wait a moment," Xianxia rolled her eyes at Yihua. Yihua wrinkled his brows. "Hurry up." Picking up the phone, Yihua saw that the call was from his mother. It has been a long time since he last saw his mother and he misses her a lot. Chapter 306. When Yihua heard this name he frowned. He had a bad premonition. Zihan said weakly on the other side of the phone, "Yeah, Mom misses you." This sentence directly poked the softest part of Xianxia's heart. Thinking about it, I haven't gone back to see Mom for a long time. So, Mom, I miss you too. Xianxia sat on the bedside and said gently. Yihua hugged Xianxia and gave her a warning look. "You just came back for a few days and you want to go out again?" "Yeah, I heard from your dad that the south isn't very peaceful recently. We are worried about you and your sister staying there." "Mom, you can be at ease, Yutong and I are very safe, nothing will happen to us." Xianxia consoled her mom attentively. However, this damned bastard was still randomly touching my body again. Zihan said faintly, "Your dad might be stubborn but he actually misses you guys a lot. His body hasn't been very good these few days, so Grandpa and Grandma have been staying here." Xianxia thought about it and agreed. Dad definitely got some news that the south isn't safe, so he called Grandpa and Grandma over. Hearing that her daughter didn't say anything, Zihan held onto her forehead and said, Mom's body hasn't been very good these few days either. If Xianxia still didn't go back, she would be unfilial. Mom, I know. Yutong and I will come back in a few days. Xianxia said helplessly. Yihua's gaze turned cold. What are you trying to do? Leaving so soon? Do you want to die? Don't come back in a few days. Mom misses you. All right, as soon as possible. Hearing that her daughter agreed, Zihan heaved a sigh of relief and hung up the phone. This year is really worrisome. I had to pretend to be sick before coming. Zihan stood up helplessly and poured a cup of water for Qin Xuanzong. Qin Xuanzong thanked her and took the teacup. Auntie, Xianxia is just concerned about you. Zihan smiled and asked curiously, Little Qin, have you found a girlfriend? It's hard to find a girlfriend. I'm still single. Qin Xuanzong smiled embarrassedly. Zihan smiled, Little Qin, don't say that. With your conditions you are still looking for a girlfriend. But it's hard to find someone who is sincere. Qin Xuanzong let out a sigh. Zihan seemed to understand something and took a sip of tea awkwardly. Qin Xuanzong also knew that he had said too much. He said apologetically, Auntie, I'm sorry. I'm fine. Then I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. I won't disturb your rest any longer, Auntie. Qin Xuanzong stood up and acted very modestly. Zihan deeply liked him. Zihan nodded, Okay, Little Qin, take care. Alright, Little Qin, give me your phone number. If comes back, I'll call you. Qin Xuanzong was overjoyed. He took out his name card and said, Thank you, Auntie. Yes, Auntie has high hopes for you. Walking out of Qing family's villa, Qin Xuanzong let out a sigh of relief. In my previous life, I wasn't able to bring happiness to Xianxia, so in this life, I will definitely cherish her properly and not let her suffer any harm. Zihan, who was in the house, looked at the name card in her hand. It was made of pure gold and there was only a name on it. It was engraved in a flamboyant style, Qin Xuanzong. It looked very imposing and there was a phone number on the back. This young man was not bad. Zihan, who came just now? Qing Yutong's mother, Wang Muqing, walked down from upstairs while yawning. Zihan laughed lightly, one of Ye'er's childhood companions. Those two are always making one worry. Wang Muqing poured a cup of water, and that coquettish look of hers was truly amorous. Xianxia's father is also someone who knows how to enjoy life. I gave a call just now, she will bring Yutong back. Really? Wang Muqing cried out in surprise. Zihan nodded her head. As long as my daughter says it, she will definitely do it. Just that, there will be very serious consequences such as being bullied by Yihua. You want to go back? Yihua asked coldly. Xianxia placed down her phone and looked at Yihua, then suddenly pushed her hands forward. Xianxia pushed Yihua onto the bed, then very domineeringly kissed her man. The supreme overlord, like this kind of domineering woman, even a kiss can be so awesome. Yihua, the supreme overlord, can't stand this kind of sound the most, and goosebumps immediately appeared on my body. This is how people behave when they have something to ask of me. Yihua Yihua asked gravely, How many days are you going to be gone for? Half a month? Half a month. Yihua shouted out gravely. Ever since Xianxia awakened that whatever bloodline of hers, Xianxia has been wandering around and not returning home at all times. Even I, the supreme overlord, am not as busy as you. That is 10 days. Xianxia shook Yihua's arm and begged. Yihua said gravely, 1 week. If you don't come back in a week, don't blame me for catching you. All right, it's settled then. Upon hearing that Yihua agreed to it, Xianxia immediately jumped off the bed. As expected, he couldn't agree to it. He wouldn't even give her any benefits. Wasn't 1 more week too long? Actually, 2 or 3 days would suffice. Xianxia opened up the wardrobe and prepared some clothes. Yihua, when I'm not around, you should focus on making a baby with Baiji. Yihua sneered. Also, Zizi has to go to school tomorrow to register, don't forget about it. Xianxia reminded. Yihua was very displeased. This is clearly what you wanted to do and now, you are pushing everything onto me. You're my husband, moi. There was nothing wrong with his words. Why are you packing things so early for? I'm going early and coming back early lest you, the jealous king of the cultivation world, get mad at me. The corner of Yihua's mouth twitched, then snorted, Yihua will get jealous? You are thinking too much. It's even better if you don't get jealous, let your wife kiss you, be good. Do you think that I, the supreme overlord, am a 3-year-old child? Just a kiss is enough? I don't even need to hug. After Xianxia finished packing, she booked a flight in the afternoon. Why didn't she just fly back directly? Because Xianxia didn't want to lose her normal way of thinking. Just like Yi Hua, in situations where it wasn't very urgent, he would still take public transportation. Xianxia walked to Qing Yutong's room and not long later she heard Qing Yutong wailing. What's with big sister's situation? Yi Hua raised his walking stick and said to Qing Yutong, if your big sister wants you to go back, then go back, don't dawdle. However, Yi Hua sent a private message to Qing Yutong, look after your big sister well, I will give you meat to eat when I come back. Upon hearing that there would be meat to eat, Qing Yutong's expression changed. Big sister, we haven't gone back for too long, hurry up and pack up. Xianxia was no longer an ordinary person. Although she wasn't able to hear their private message, she knew that it was Yi Hua who was messing around. To actually send a spy to watch over me, what a stingy man. However, Xianxia still felt sweet in her heart. Zizi's sister-in-law will be going back for a few days, you have to be obedient. Xianxia rubbed onto Yi Zizi's head and warned carefully. Yi Zizi nodded her head, I will be obedient. Chapter 307. The more she said that, the more Yi Hua didn't believe her. At this moment, Donghuang Baiji walked over while carrying her daughter. What are you two doing? Xianxia is going back to my parents' home for a few days. Yi Hua said faintly. Xianxia pinched onto Donghuang Li's cheeks. Baiji, please take care of Yi Hua, I won't disturb the two of you anymore. Donghuang Baiji's face turned red. And Qing, are you two going out to play? Ali wants to go out to play too. Donghuang Li stretched out her hands towards Xianxia. Xianxia carried Donghuang Li in her embrace. Aunt Qing is not going out to play, I am going back to see my parents. Is that so? According to etiquette, Ali should also go and see her parents, if not, Ali would seem to be very rude. Donghuang Li muttered, causing everyone to laugh. Yi Hua suddenly had an idea. Xianxia, you can bring Ali along to play. Ah. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji cried out in surprise. After crying out in surprise, Xianxia understood what Yi Hua meant. Towards Donghuang Baiji, there was nothing she could do. Donghuang Baiji glared at Yi Hua. Daddy is the best, Ali likes daddy. Donghuang Li happily jumped down from Xianxia's embrace, and not long later she came back with a small luggage. Ali is ready, when are we leaving? Everyone, at 3 p.m., Yi Hua naturally had to send Xianxia and his daughter off. Donghuang Baiji was also by his side, because Yi Hua was going to be responsible for driving later on. Yi Hua's driving was like a bumper car. When he saw someone cutting in front of him, he couldn't help but step on the accelerator. When they arrived at the airport, the few people were quite eye-catching. One was a cute little girl and 3 were super beauties. A lot of foreigners took out their phones and started taking pictures. Such beauties were truly hard to come by in 100 years. Baiji, you two can go back first, I will take good care of Ali. Xianxia said with a smile while carrying Donghuang Li. Donghuang Li said, Daddy, Mommy, you two can go back first, Ali will take good care of Aunt Qing. Qing Yutong naturally disguised herself as the big sister. She wore her earphones and stood behind the big sister while sucking on the lollipop that Yi Zizi gave her. Yi Hua silently nodded his head, then said casually, Xianxia, I want to ask you a few questions. Papa is going to take a test. Everyone smiled helplessly. Yi Hua said faintly, do you know what the punishment is? I'm going to give you a kiss. Xianxia pouted her mouth. I want to act cool in public again? It's good that you know. Then let me ask you the first question. What should I wear for the class reunion? Xianxia laughed lightly. Class reunion? I'm not going at all. Donghuang Baiji covered her mouth and laughed lightly. Regarding Yi Hua's problem, the two women had already discussed about it. Aunt Qing is the best. Donghuang Li knew that she had answered correctly, and thus Donghuang Li kissed onto Xianxia's face. You guessed correctly. Yi Hua was unhappy. Can't I just enjoy the envious gaze of others? Me and, before Yi Hua could finish speaking, Xianxia said, I only have you in my heart. Donghuang Li's face became red, and she buried her head into Xianxia's bosom. Yi Hua let out a sigh. Seems like I have to think of another method. However, just as Yi Hua was feeling disappointed, Xianxia still tiptoed and gave Yi Hua a kiss. Soon after, Xianxia picked up her luggage and said, All right, you two can go back now. Looking at their backs that were leaving, Yi Hua touched his cheek. Xianxia is really becoming more and more mischievous. Yi Hua took a glance at his surroundings. Humans, go and exclaim in admiration at my luck with women. There's nothing that you won't be able to enjoy in your entire life. After finished speaking, Yi Hua hugged onto Donghuang Baiji who was beside him. Who dares to act cool in front of me? Donghuang Baiji was helpless. My syndrome of acting cool after smoking is getting serious. Even when I don't smoke, I still have to do it. Baiji, let's go back and make a baby. Yihua was a bit excited. I have to warm up my body first when I go back in case I break my waist. Donghuang Baiji sat on the driver's seat and said coquettishly, you should rest for a few days first, don't break your waist. Right now, I am full of vigor, I can even fight for 3 days and 3 nights. Alright, let's enjoy our world together. A layer of redness appeared on Donghuang Baiji's face. This is a rare opportunity for me to enjoy our world together. Indescribably, Donghuang Baiji started feeling nervous. Yihua, who was sitting on the co-pilot's seat, said faintly, Baiji, don't be like last time, fainting in just a few hours. Yihua. Donghuang Baiji pouted coquettishly. That was something that happened 3 years ago and you still dare to mention it. Yihua turned his head and looked towards Donghuang Baiji. Baiji, I like how you looked that night, you were very beautiful. Stop messing around, I'm driving. Donghuang Baiji bit onto her lips. This fellow sent everyone away so that he could make a move on me, what a scheming man. Yihua expressed that he was very happy. I am about to enjoy Donghuang Baiji's mature body soon. Just thinking about it makes me a bit excited. On the other side, this was the first time Donghuang Li sat on a big plane and she was very excited. Because they were in a rush, they didn't buy any business class tickets and only bought ordinary tickets. However, since the 3 of them were sitting in a row, Donghuang Li definitely had to sit by the window to look at the white clouds. Ali, fasten your seatbelt. Xianxia instructed. Donghuang Li hurriedly fastened her seatbelt, then asked curiously, Aunt Qing, Daddy and Mommy are giving birth at home, you won't be angry, right? Xianxia went into a daze, then stroked onto Donghuang Li's face. If I am going to be angry, I would have long exploded from anger. Now that things have come to this, there's nothing to be angry about. Furthermore, Donghuang Baiji is also not bad, I can accept it, but she is the only one. If it was in the past I would, but now I won't. Xianxia said with a gentle smile. Donghuang Li nodded her head. She had a look of, I am a little adult, I understand everything, you don't need to explain anything to me. Qing Yutong pouted her mouth. Big sister really changed. Or rather, love has changed both brother-in-law and big sister. Master, the battle to push down brother-in-law has already been delayed for so long, when are we going to continue? Qing Yutong's system asked. Qing Yutong replied while listening to the song, let's talk about this matter in the future, I want to sleep now. In the past, I did indeed have the intention to push down brother-in-law, but after seeing how noisy they were, I didn't want to push down brother-in-law anymore. What's more, with such a strong backing like brother-in-law, what's the difference between pushing down brother-in-law or not pushing down brother-in-law? If I were to be bullied, wouldn't brother-in-law have to seek justice for me? Sister-in-law is a pretty good position. Aunt Qing. Donghuang Li shouted out. Xianxia and Qing Yutong both looked over. Donghuang Li pursed her lips. Sometimes, when the 2 of us are together, if the 2 of us were to call each other Aunt Qing, the 2 of us would turn around to look at each other. Aunt Qing, Ali feels that I have to change the way I address you. Xianxia smiled sweetly. Alright, then what should Ali call Aunt Qing? Mommy Qing, Qing Yutong laughed, and Xianxia poked her little sister petulantly. Looking at Ali's expectant gaze, Xianxia spread out her hands. Alright, but Ali cannot call me that in front of Mommy Qing's family. Chapter 308. Later on, if Donghuang Li were to directly call me mother, my mother would probably go into a daze. The gray plane safely landed at Zijin City's international airport. Xianxia was carrying on to Donghuang Li, who had already fallen asleep, while Qing Yutong was in charge of pushing the luggage. He hailed a taxi and went straight home. I reckon that even the parents didn't know that their 2 daughters would come back so quickly, and Xianxia and Qing Yutong were evidently going to give the parents a surprise. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening when he arrived home. It just so happened that it was dinner time. Xianxia was still hugging onto Donghuang Li, who was sleeping soundly, and Qing Yutong was secretly removing her makeup to prevent her parents from chattering endlessly. Ding dong. Ding dong, it was Uncle Fu who opened the door. Ladies, sorry I was too excited. You guys are finally back. Uncle Fu was also very excited. This was the first time he had seen the 2 young ladies come back at the same time. This kind of situation was something he had seen in school. Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu. Xianxia and Qing Yutong greeted enthusiastically. 2 misses, quickly come in, the master and the madams are currently eating dinner. Uncle Fu took over the luggage from Qing Yutong's hands, and Xianxia and Qing Yutong walked into the house. Donghuang Li was still sleeping soundly. It was normal for children to love sleeping. The two sisters walked to the dining room and saw that the whole family was there. Seeing that his daughter and granddaughter had returned, everyone was surprised. Zihan and Wang Muqing were overjoyed. They had just made a phone call at noon and they came back at night. They were really much more sensible than before. As the father, Xuanhuan's gaze was filled with joy, but he still kept a straight face, seemingly unable to let go of his face. Old man Qingren revealed out a kind smile, and old lady Mei Xuanhuan looked at her two granddaughters confusedly. Her dementia is getting more and more serious. Right now she seems to be unable to recognize Qingya and Qing Yutong. However, this time when Qingya came back, she had the ability to cure her grandmother's dementia. Yutong, the two of you haven't eaten yet, right? Quickly sit down and eat, Mom will scoop some rice for you. Zihan cried tears of joy. Last time they parted on bad terms. After such a long time, her daughter had finally returned. But who was the child his daughter was carrying? Qingya, the child in your bosom is? Qingren asked. Qingya said tenderly, this is my friend's child, I will take care of him for a few days, it can be considered as a warm-up. When Qingya said, warm up, everyone immediately knew that there was another one in Qingya's stomach. Qing Yutong silently praised her big sister for being awesome. After her bloodline awakened, even her temperament has changed. Qingren seemed to have gotten over it and said gravely, Qingya, this is someone else's child, you have to properly look after him, don't let anything happen to him. Grandpa, I know. Zihan hurriedly picked up some food for her daughter. Don't talk anymore, Qingya, you eat more. Mom, you should eat more too. Dong Huangli suddenly let out a sweet melody. She rubbed her big hazy eyes and asked, Mommy Qing, where are we? Mom? Everyone was puzzled, and Qing Yutong felt that little Ali was here to trick her big sister. Ali, we're home. Dong Huangli went into a daze. Aunt Qing, we've arrived. Just now, Ali even dreamt of Mommy. This little Ali sure is smart. Dong Huangli could be seen taking a look at everyone, then standing upright at the side she shouted out, Grandpa, Grandma, Uncle, Aunt, hello everyone, my name is Dong Huangli, it's our first time meeting, please take care of me. Right now, Ali doesn't have any income, so I don't have any money to buy gifts. Therefore please don't blame Ali. When Ali becomes rich in the future, I will definitely not come empty-handed. Dong Huangli felt that she didn't lose face for her daddy. Since daddy didn't come, I am naturally daddy's representative. Everyone went into a daze. This little doll is so polite. If we were to let them know that she is Yihua's daughter, they definitely wouldn't believe it. The father has the appearance of the world's number one, and yet, his daughter is so outstanding. Qingya, whose child is this? Why is she so obedient? Wang Muqing was very fond of Dong Huangli. Wang Muqing walked over and carried Dong Huangli up. This little fellow is truly too likable. Qingya said tenderly, she is the child of a good friend. Dong Huangli loved to listen to adults praising her. Ali promised Mommy that I will take good care of Aunt Qing. Dong Huangli began showing off her maturity again. Qingya and Qing Yutong laughed tenderly. Zihan also walked over and said with a smile, Ali sure is sensible. Qing Huaxian said faintly, all right everyone sit down and eat, the dishes are already cold. On the dining table, Dong Huangli placed all kinds of dishes on the adults' plates, causing everyone to be extremely happy. Even Qing Huaxian revealed out a rare smile. This little girl sure is sensible. Seeing that everyone was more or less happy, Dong Huangli said to Qingya in a low voice, Mommy Qing, you can be at ease, Ali will protect you. This is the mission that Daddy gave Ali. Qingya smiled very sweetly and said in a low voice, I knew that Ali is the best. That is for sure. Qing Huaxian placed down his chopsticks and said faintly, Qingya Yutong, after coming back, don't go back to the south, that place is very chaotic right now. Zihan also followed up and said, that's right, I heard that a lot of people died there. Dad, Mom, big sister and I plan to rest for a week before going back. Chapter 309. At this time, Qingren's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from his old comrade. Are you saying that sage doctor is coming tonight? Qingren cried out in surprise. Alright, I got it, thank you. Qingren hurriedly expressed his thanks, then put down the phone. His wife's illness could be cured. Qingya decided to take a look first. If he is a swindler, I will chase him away and try it myself. Everyone, quickly eat your meal and prepare to welcome Sage Doctor. Qing Huaxian said hurriedly. Suddenly, Qingya thought of Donghuang Baiji. Her voidless realm is a big power in the north. Wouldn't a small sage doctor have to obediently listen to her? However, what Qing Yutong was thinking was different. My brother-in-law is a supreme overlord. What can a mere sage doctor amount to? Even if brother-in-law sneezes, he would be able to exterminate that sage doctor. Dong Huang Li's way of thinking was very simple. Daddy is the most formidable man in the world, there is no one else who can compare to him. After the meal, everyone cleaned up a little and waited quietly for the arrival of Saint Doctor. Zihan was whispering to her daughter. From time to time she would look at her daughter's belly. She was reluctant to part with it, but she also wanted to abort it. Yeah, do you still remember our neighbor who lived in Long'an City in the past? Zihan asked probingly. Xianxia recalled for a bit, then nodded her head. I still have some impression of this place, just that it suddenly disappeared afterwards. I'm a bit disappointed. However, those were all just the budding desires of a young girl. Thinking about it now, it was just a fleeting moment because her heart was now filled with Yihua. Xiaoqin came over today and right now he looks very handsome. Zihan began praising Qin Xuanzong. Little did she know that her daughter's heart had long since been locked up by Yihua. Xianxia went into a daze. Qin Xuanzong came? Dong Huang Li, who was in Dong Huang Li's bosom, felt that something was wrong. This Qin Xuanzong is definitely a man. Even Qing Yutong, who was at the side, also heard her big sister's cry of surprise. Something big had happened. This Qin Xuanzong was an incredible figure. Back then it wasn't Qin Xuanzong who had a crush on big sister. Instead it was big sister who had a crush on Qin Xuanzong. It was just that Qin Xuanzong had disappeared in the end. On that day big sister was even prepared to send him a love letter. He never expected that Qin Xuanzong, who had disappeared for so long, would reappear. Brother-in-law, you have to be careful this time, the enemy is very strong. I'm going to the toilet. Qing Yutong muttered. Xianxia still didn't know what her little sister wanted to do and hurriedly shouted out, Yutong, what are you doing? I'm going to the toilet. After saying that, he went to snitch, instantly betraying his sister. Xianxia was helpless. Those are all things that happened when I was still in school and they can't be counted anymore. Besides, didn't I not hand over the love letter back then? Didn't I still give all of my first time to Yihua? However, according to this jealous king's personality, he will definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. Although it was a matter of the past, at the very least, Yihua was still his childhood playmate. I mustn't let Yihua act recklessly. Leisure bar in Long'an City in the bedroom on the second floor. No matter what, Dong Huang Baiji wouldn't be able to escape tonight. Right now, Dong Huang Baiji was tightly pressed onto Yihua's body, and Yihua was enjoying Dong Huang Baiji's body. Meanwhile, Dong Huang Baiji was letting out an intoxicated moan. Tonight, the same thing that happened 3 years ago is going to happen again. Kissing Dong Huang Baiji's cherry lips, Dong Huang Baiji caressed every single inch of Dong Huang Baiji's skin. As expected of my woman. Ring ring ring. His phone rang. He hung up. Ring ring ring. It rang again. Yihua answered the phone first. Dong Huang Baiji's face was red. Knowing that she wouldn't be able to escape tonight, Dong Huang Baiji allowed Yihua to bully her. Yihua stood up snappily, and saw that it was his sister-in-law who called him. What a good timing. After answering the phone, Yihua said gravely, Yutong, if you don't give me a proper explanation, you will be in for a good time when you come back. Qing Yutong, who was sitting on the toilet, hurriedly said, Brother-in-law, something big happened. Something big happened again. Why do you all like to describe things like this? No matter how big the matter is, in my eyes, it is just a small matter. What matter? Yihua asked gravely. Brother-in-law, your love rival has appeared. Love rival? Yihua's brows wrinkled. This term is very fresh. I only have enemies, how can I have a love rival? Qing Yutong told Yihua about the relationship between this love rival of hers, and Yihua's brows wrinkled more and more. This man is actually Xianxia's crush when she was young. Damn it, Xianxia has been mine since she was young, which man dares to touch her? Should I go and kill that guy right now? Qin Xuanzong's. I have to let him know, don't even think about my woman. Brother-in-law, calm down, don't get agitated. Qing Yutong hurriedly persuaded. What's the matter? Yihua's tone was a bit irritable. If that guy likes Xianxia, it would be fine, but since that guy is someone that Xianxia likes, then I definitely have to kill him. Qing Yutong said attentively, Brother-in-law, big sister knows that I am secretly informing you right now. If you kill that guy, it is a small matter if you die, but I'm afraid that big sister will mistakenly think that you are killing people randomly. Yihua felt that what Qing Yutong said was a bit reasonable. This Xianxia has been very arrogant recently. Chapter 310. I know that it has been hard on you. While caressing onto Donghuang Baiji's body, Yihua consoled. Donghuang Baiji smiled tenderly. Go and sleep, we still have to wake up early tomorrow morning to send Zizi to register. Yes. Tonight, Yihua didn't have the mood to do anything to the Empress. Not only tonight, even if Xianxia didn't return, Yihua wouldn't have the mood to do anything to the Empress. On the other side, Qing Yutong walked out from the bathroom, and immediately she was glared at by Xianxia. Qing Yutong made a funny face. Mom, I'm going to the bathroom. Xianxia said tenderly. I have to explain this matter to Yihua. If not, with the jealous king's personality, he would definitely be preparing to stir up trouble right now. Zihan was very puzzled. What was going on with these two? After closing the door, Xianxia gave Yihua a call, but who knew that Yihua's phone would be turned off? Is he angry? Or was he sleeping? Before Yihua sleeps, he likes to switch off his phone to prevent others from disturbing him. Left with no other choice, Xianxia could only send a message over. The message was very simple and also very straightforward. Hubby, I love you. Heaving a sigh of relief, he washed his hands and looked at himself in the mirror. Xianxia let out a light sigh. She is becoming more and more beautiful, this is truly troublesome. After walking out of the bathroom, Xianxia carried Donghuang Li, then rolled her eyes at her little sister. Traitor. Qing Yutong expressed that she was doing this for your own good, and wanted to give brother-in-law a heads up first. Don't let brother-in-law bump into this at that time. If that happens, then the world would really fall apart. Ding dong ding dong. When the doorbell rang, it affected the hearts of the entire Qing family. Of course, other than Xianxia and his sister, there was also little Ali. The butler, Uncle Fu, was preparing to open the door, and Qing Yutong hurriedly shouted out, Uncle Fu, I'll go open the door. Qing Yutong wanted to see just how awesome this sage doctor was, to actually be unable to invite him over in all kinds of ways. This sage doctor was truly too good at acting. He walked to the door and opened it. There was a handsome man standing outside the door. He was wearing a white shirt and jeans. He was clean and had a faint smile on his face. Shouldn't he be arrogant? This can't be a fake saint doctor, right? Is this the Qing family? Song Huang asked in a light voice. Qing Yutong asked curiously, You are the sage doctor, right? I don't deserve to be called a holy doctor. I can only treat difficult and complicated diseases. Song Huang said modestly. This girl in front of him was very special. She was also very beautiful. Song Huang had seen quite a lot of beautiful girls in his life, but it was rare to see a girl like this. Originally, Qing Yutong wanted to kill off the other party's imposing manner, but she didn't expect that this sage doctor would be so low profile. Please come over, remember to change your shoes. Qing Yutong said. This caused Song Huang to go into a daze for a moment. A girl with quite a personality. Qing Qingren and Qing Huaxian walked over, and when they heard that their daughter actually told Sage Doctor to change his shoes, they immediately became speechless. Yutong. What are you talking about? Hurry up and pour some tea. Holy Doctor, my daughter doesn't know any better, she doesn't need to change her shoes. Qing Huaxian said hurriedly. This Sage Doctor is not someone that we can afford to offend. In the north, how many families have to give face to him, let alone a small Qing family? Song Huang smiled. It's all right. Men were like this. It didn't matter if they met a beautiful woman, but if they met someone they didn't like, then there would be a problem. Everyone laughed dryly. They didn't expect this saint doctor to be so amiable and approachable. Qing family chief, where is he? Song Huang changed into slippers and asked curiously. Sage doctor, please follow me. Qing Qingren brought Song Huang to the bedroom on the second floor. When Song Huang passed by the living room, he saw Xianxia and Donghuang Li. I didn't expect that this Qing family would actually have two such beautiful daughters. However, this Xianxia seems to be pregnant. Everyone followed him upstairs. At this time, Mei Xuanhuan was watching SpongeBob SquarePants, clapping and laughing from time to time. Qing Qingren said worriedly, Sage doctor, do you think my husband's illness can still be cured? Song Huang walked forward and observed the situation for a while, then said, Clan leader Qing, don't worry, I can cure him. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. And at this moment, Qing Yutong also came over with a cup of tea, then said casually, Here, have some tea. Yutong. Be a bit more polite. Qing Huaxian shouted out in a low voice. The other party is an outstanding and famous sage doctor. It would be bad if they offended Sage Doctor. Song Huang took the cup of boiling water and smiled. It's all right. After drinking a mouthful of boiling water, Song Huang smiled and said, Miss Qing is really considerate of this song. I'm afraid that the temperature of the water is more than 100 degrees Celsius. I have never seen someone who can act cool like this. and Qing Yutong can be said to be convinced. Yutong, get out. Qing Huaxian shouted out. This is too unruly. Don't you know what time it is? Song Huang placed down the cup of tea, then said with a light smile, Everyone, please go out for a while, I need a quiet environment. Qing Qingren nodded his head, then everyone left the bedroom and waited outside. Big sister, I have tested him, this sage doctor does have some ability. Qing Yutong said in a low voice. Qing Ya smiled bitterly and shook her head. However, now that you have brother-in-law backing you up, you are indeed able to do whatever you want. Qing Yutong smiled with her eyes squinted. Isn't that all because big sister has good eyesight? If not, how would I, your little sister, be able to do whatever I want? Then, can Ali also do whatever she wants? Dong Huangli asked naively. Qing Ya naturally wouldn't be like Yi Hua who taught a child recklessly. Of course Ali can't, he has to listen to adults. What Aunt Qing did just now was wrong, Ali cannot learn from her. Qing Ya said in a low voice. Dong Huangli nodded her head, then said casually, Aunt Qing, actually, the effect of the water that you poured out from the toilet bowl just now should be better. Qing Ya, Qing Yutong, Ali, who did you learn this from? You can't play tricks on people like this. Qing Ya criticized Ali harshly. Since a child was young, she had to be taught the correct way of thinking. Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Ali learned it from watching TikTok. The two sisters took a look at each other. This TikTok is truly harmful. Ali, in the future you cannot casually learn things that you are not good at. If not, your daddy will spank your butt. Qing Ya scared Dong Huangli a bit. And, Ali won't learn it anymore. This is what a good child should be. Just as the two of them were chatting, the bedroom door was pushed open, and with a relaxed smile on his face, Song Huang could be seen walking out of the bedroom. It's done. For a sage doctor like Song Huang, treating a person with dementia was very easy. Even the current Qing Ya was able to do it. Qing Qingren and Qing Huaxian hurriedly thanked Song Huang, then walked into the bedroom to check on the situation. No matter what, this sage doctor cured their grandma's illness. Qing Ya and Qing Yutong had to thank Song Huang. You're welcome, this is also the duty of a doctor. This Song Huang didn't even blink his eyes when he lied. From the looks of it, Song Huang is already interested in Qing Yutong. There's no helping it, who asked Qing Yutong to be so beautiful. If Song Huang didn't have any feelings for her, that would be a lie. Qing Ya seemed to have also sensed that this sage doctor had been looking at her little sister. Qing Yutong seemed to have also sensed that sage doctor was looking at her little sister. Qing Yutong seemed to have sensed that sage doctor was looking at her little sister. Chapter 311. Sage doctor, it has been hard on you. Go downstairs and eat some desserts. Qing Huaxian walked out of the bedroom and said respectfully. Qing Qingren didn't come out and was accompanying his wife in the room. On the other hand, Song Huang seemed to be quite courteous, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face as he said, Then I will have to trouble you, clan leader Qing. If this was in the past, would Song Huang be so polite? That nose had already ascended to the heavens. Qing Huaxian looked at sage doctor's gaze, then looked at his own daughter Yutong, and joy appeared in his heart. Wang Muqing, who was at the back, seemed to have noticed something. Could it be that this saint doctor had taken a fancy to her daughter? That was great news. This sage doctor was a famous person in the north, and there were countless people waiting for him to save their lives. If he married Yutong, that would be incredible. Zihan was a little envious. Her daughter was determined to follow one of them? A woman who owned a bar and gave birth to his child. Just thinking about this gave him a headache. Yutong, go and get some pastries. Wang Muqing hurriedly asked her daughter to prepare the food. She thought to herself, you have to perform well. If you are chosen by the sage doctor, you will become a phoenix. But then again, when the two sisters came back today, they seemed to be much more beautiful. It was really strange. Did they team up and go for plastic surgery? Qing Yutong still didn't know what her mother was thinking, and she helplessly answered, then walked downstairs. The group of people sat on the sofa in the living room. Qing Ya was still hugging onto Dong Huangli, and Dong Huangli was currently playing with Su Fuji's lollipop. Dong Huangli's lollipop was even stuffed with the lollipop, then curiously observed Dong Huangli. Miss Yutong hasn't gotten married yet, right? Song Huang asked curiously. Everyone was shocked. As expected of a saint doctor, he was a little too direct. Qing Ya was also startled by Song Huang's straightforwardness. However, Qing Ya was feeling a bit displeased in her heart. After all, there was something wrong with Song Huang's attitude. It was as if Song Huang was telling Qing Ya that if Qing Ya wasn't married to Qing Ya, she would marry Qing Ya to Qing Ya. If Yi Hua were to hear what Yi Hua just said, he would definitely give Yi Hua a big slap. Acting cool in front of me, are you tired of living? Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Aunt Qing is definitely not going to become your wife. You are a toad that wants to eat swan meat. Ali's analogy was very appropriate. As Qing Yutong's mother, Wang Muqing said with a tender voice, up until now my Yutong still hasn't even had a boyfriend, she is very pure. He and Yi Zizi worked together to wreak havoc in the Ying family, causing the two brothers to fall out with one another. Song Huang should be worried about me. I actually went to provoke Yi Hua's sister-in-law. Song Huang understood what Wang Muqing meant. So she has never touched a man before. Not bad. It's not easy to find such an innocent girl these days. I even saw Yutong's movie last year. It's really not bad. Song Huang had indeed seen Qing Yutong before, it was just that when he had just met Qing Yutong, he wasn't able to tell that the current Qing Yutong was much more beautiful than before, and Qing Yutong was on a completely different level compared to before. Just now, after careful observation, he recognized that it was that big star. Qing Huaxian said with a smile, my daughter is also going there to play around. Sage doctor, please don't laugh at me. Qing family head, don't say that. Yutong is a pretty good girl. Song Huang immediately praised. This made Wang Muqing very happy. This saint doctor is definitely not a problem. As long as my daughter is willing, Qing family will have a son-in-law who is a saint doctor. At this moment, Qing Yutong came over while carrying the dessert, and there was nothing abnormal on her face, and there was even a light smile on her face. If Yi Zizi was here, she would know that Qing Yutong wanted to do something bad. Originally he was here to treat his illness, but now it was more like a blind date. Yutong, peel an apple for Sage Doctor. Wang Muqing signaled her daughter with her eyes. Speak properly to Sage Doctor, in the future Qing family will have to rely on you. Your sister has indeed fallen, there is no hope for her anymore. Qing Yutong snorted coldly in her heart. I have only helped brother-in-law peel crayfish before, and now I don't even want to peel crayfish for other men anymore. Here the taste will be better if you eat it with the skin on. Qing Yutong said with a gentle smile as she passed the apple to Song Huang. Song Huang did not say anything and took the apple with a smile. He even took a bite of the apple. Not bad, the taste is indeed good. Damn it, even if Qing Yutong gave you a pile of shit, you would also say that the taste is not bad, right? Qing Huaxian and Wang Muqing glared at their daughter. Don't learn from your sister, this is a rare opportunity, you have to properly grasp it. Qingya smiled and did not say anything. My younger sister is starting to cause trouble again. What were you two talking about just now? Qing Yutong took the initiative to strike up a conversation, appearing to be very cheerful and very straightforward. This was what attracted Song Huang's attention. Wang Muqing said with a gentle voice, we were talking about how you are already so big, yet you still haven't found a boyfriend. Sigh, my expectations are too high. Qing Yutong sighed, as if there isn't a single man in this world that is worthy of me. Brother-in-law is too handsome and he is too good at acting cool. Song Huang asked curiously, I wonder how high Yutong's expectations are? Is he very familiar with you? And he even called me Yutong Yutong. Song Huang's parents immediately looked towards Qing Yutong. That gaze of theirs seemed to be telling Qing Yutong not to act recklessly. I know. Dong Huangli, who was sitting on Qing Ye's lap, suddenly raised her hand and shouted out. Looking at the child who was in Qing Ye's lap, Song Huang felt that the child was very cute. Little friend, why don't you tell us about it then? Originally, Qing Huaxian wanted to stop Qing Yutong. After all, if a child knew something they would always talk about it. However, since Sage Doctor had already spoken, it would be embarrassing for Qing Yutong to stop Qing Yutong. Dong Huangli blinked her big eyes and said, Aunt Qing likes to play games, those who are good at playing games can bring her to a chicken dinner. Qingya couldn't help but laugh. Qing Yutong laughed too. However, the other people's expressions were a bit stiff. Playing games? Those who are seated here are all people who are capable of doing big things who would go and play games. Ali knows me the best, Qing Yutong said with a smile, then even blew a kiss to Ali. Dong Huangli was not to be outdone and blew a kiss to Ali as well. Song Huang laughed lightly. A celebrity actually likes to play games, this is a bit interesting. In actuality, what Qing Yutong said just now might not be effective, but after saying it like that, Song Huang felt that Qing Yutong was even more extraordinary. Wang Muqing suggested, I heard that there are a few good movies being released recently, you all can go and watch them. I might as well play games. Qing Yutong pouted her mouth. Only by watching a movie with brother-in-law will it be interesting. Not only will I be able to watch a movie, I will also be able to watch them quarrel. and then my big sister will instantly become terrified. Xuanhuan was also not very interested and said, "Tonight there will be an annual auction at Yuanlinglong, it should be very interesting. It just so happens that I was invited, so I am preparing to go." Qingya and Qing Yutong had never heard of this Yuanlinglong before, but Qing Huaxian had heard of this Yuanlinglong before. This Yuanlinglong is incredible. It is said that it is a place opened by a super big figure, and even I am not qualified to enter it. The things that are being auctioned are all rare items, and the important thing is that I will be able to get to know a lot of big figures and expand my circle of friends. If my daughter doesn't want to go, I would like to go and take a look. In actuality, this Yuanlinglong was opened by the northern aristocratic family Yi family. Back then, when they were fighting over the 9 demons punishing tower, Tang Wushuang even called Yi Xiao over to help them, but unfortunately Yi Xiao left in the end. Chapter 312. Qing Yutong was a bit interested in this auction and she asked towards Qingya, "Big sister, are you going?" Xuanhuan understood that Qing Yutong wanted to find someone to accompany her. "Miss Qing, how about we go together?" Xuanhuan invited with a smile on his face. "Bringing a woman like Qingya by my side is also giving me face." Dong Huangli pulled onto Qingya's arm and said sweetly, "Aunt Qing, Ali wants to go and play." Originally, Qingya didn't want to go, because she promised Yi Hua that she wouldn't attend any banquets. "Aunt Qing," Dong Huangli acted coquettishly. Zihan also persuaded, "Yeah, just go and experience the world." Qingya, Qing Yutong, experience the world? Qing Yutong followed brother-in-law to subdue Ying family. That was the world. All of Ying family's people kneeled on the ground respectfully, not daring to be disrespectful towards brother-in-law. If anyone dared to cause trouble, they would turn into a pool of blood. That day brother-in-law was simply too handsome. Meanwhile, Qingya couldn't help but think back to the battle at Voidless Realm that day. That scene should be the world, right? After all, that was a battle between 2 big powers, and that scene was just a cheap trick played by the underlings of the big powers. Using Yi Hua's words, when a group of salted fishes were gathered together, they would compete to see who was salter. Of course, you can also go and see how a group of salted fishes compete to see who was salter. That kind of scene should be very funny. Unable to withstand Dong Huangli's acting coquettishly, Qingya said dotingly, all right, I'll bring you to play." "That's great." After speaking, Dong Huangli kissed towards Qingya. Qing Yutong smiled, "Ali, you're not good enough." Dong Huangli jumped down from Qingya's embrace, then jumped into Qing Yutong's embrace and kissed her. Song Huang didn't feel disgusted, after all she's just a child. "It's getting late, let's set off." Song Huang stood up and said, "Tonight's Yuanlinglong auction could be considered as a small gathering for the northern powers. It would be good for me to bring them to experience the world, and it would also allow me to display my abilities." Qing Huaxian instructed his 2 daughters in a low voice, "You 2 perform well, don't lose Qing family's face. Especially you Yutong, take good care of Sage Doctor." The sisters sighed softly. "We're just there to kill time. We really don't think that they're that powerful." After that, Wang Muqing also came over to remind her daughter to behave well in front of Saint Doctor and not to throw a tantrum. After everyone left, Zihan secretly gave Qin Xuanzong a call. Coincidentally, Qin Xuanzong was already in Yuanlinglong. 2 men were kneeling in front of him. "Aunt Z, I understand. Thank you." After hanging up the phone, a trace of a smile appeared on Qin Xuanzong's face. Because he was about to meet Qingya soon, he was a bit excited and also a bit nervous. However, when he saw the 2 people in front of him, his smile gradually sank, and his black eyes once again revealed a murderous aura. "I'll ask you one last time. Who sent you to destroy my Qin family?" After searching for a long time these days, most of the assassins from back then were dead. Only these 2 changed professions and they were even big bosses now, living very freely. "We really don't know. Yes, we are very sorry about what happened back then." Qin Xuanzong's killing intent surged as he grabbed out with his palm. One of the men's expression changed. He felt as if his neck was being strangled, and a sense of suffocation surged up. He couldn't help but grab his neck and roll on the ground. Gradually the man stopped struggling. His eyes were filled with fear. The man kneeling on the side was a little scared. His forehead was covered in sweat. He hadn't killed anyone in many years, so he was not used to seeing such a scene. "Speak and I'll spare your life," Qin Xuanzong questioned coldly. The man gasped for air and asked, "Are you really going to let me go?" "That's right." The man steeled his heart and said, "It's the Xiao family Xiao Yi." Qin Xuanzong frowned. He picked up the wine glass and shook it lightly, The Xiao family is in the north. Why should my small Qin family be exterminated? I don't know either. I heard that it's for the ancient godly item. As for the rest, I really don't know. Qin Xuanzong raised his head and drank the red wine in his cup. He clenched his fists tightly. The man's eyes were wide open and blood flowed out of his eyes. Then blood flowed out of his 7 apertures. You lied to me. Do I, Qin Xuanzong, still need to explain to you when I kill someone? You. Looking at the man in front of him fall, the hostility in Qin Xuanzong's heart didn't lessen. Instead, it became even stronger. North Xiao family Xiaoyi. Ancient godly item. From the looks of it back then, my parents knew something that they shouldn't have known, which was why they were killed by Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi, you killed my entire family. Even so, I will still kill your entire family. Demon Emperor versus Immortal Emperor. This would be a good show that Yi Hua would like to watch. On the other side, Qingya and Qing Yutong had already arrived at Yuan Linglong. A clubhouse like this would usually be located in the outskirts. It was clean and the air was good. Of course, what was even more convenient was that the clubhouse would be able to bury people after killing someone. However, there had never been a murder case in this place. After all, this was the territory of the North's Yi family. The family heads wouldn't dare to cause trouble, and the other 4 great families would also give face to them. Of course, there was no need for Voidless Realm to give face to them. Yuan Linglong was located at the center of the lake. This was a man-made lake. Of course, there was also a small island at the center of the lake. The entire building was about the size of a football field. The entire building wasn't tall and it only had 1 floor. The roof frame was made from top-notch mahogany. The pillars were slightly inclined outwards, and the 4 corners were tall, forming an overhanging eave. The roof was decorated with yellow and green glazed tiles. Looking at the building from afar, it looked very majestic. There was a long stone bridge that was connected to the shore. On both sides of the bridge there were stone railings and stone pillars, and on every pillar, there were stone lions with different postures engraved on it. Some of the stone lions were hugging each other, some of the stone lions were whispering into each other's ears, and there were all kinds of postures that were vivid and lifelike. Standing on top of the bridge and enjoying the gentle breeze that caressed one's face during summer like this was a very comfortable thing. Meanwhile, there were all kinds of luxurious cars parked at the shore, and it was more than enough to hold a car show. Everyone got off the car and walked onto the bridge, then entered Yuan Linglong. Qingya and Qing Yutong got off the car at the same time. Although the 2 of them weren't wearing any formal attire, their appearance immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. After all, with their appearance, no matter what they wore, they would still be beautiful. The 2 sisters sized up the place for a bit. This was no different from an ordinary gathering. Everyone was wearing gorgeous attire, and the women were competing with each other's beauty. There were even some men who were surrounded by 4 or 5 beautiful women. Looking at it this way, Qingya felt that Yi Hua had become much more well-behaved. I reckon that he is currently doing it with Baiji right now. This bastard can't wait for me to come out. When Song Huang appeared, sure enough, a commotion broke out among the crowd. Since Song Huang had the power to decide the life and death of a lot of people, even aristocratic families had to be polite to Song Huang. That is Sage Dr. Song Huang. It really is Sage Doctor. I didn't expect that he would also come today. Who are the 2 women besides Sage Dr. Song? I have never seen them before. Chapter 313. The surrounding people began to discuss spiritedly, guessing the relationship between the 2 of them. From the looks of it, Qing Yutong's change was indeed very big. No one was able to recognize that she was that big celebrity from back then. Song Huang walked over to Qing Yutong's side, then asked attentively, "Are you feeling all right?" Looking at the building in the middle of the lake, Qing Yutong spread out her hands. "It's not bad, right?" Song Huang laughed lightly. "This Qing Yutong's appetite is a bit too much." Dong Huangli jumped down from Qingya's body, then bounced and ran towards the stone bridge. Qingya hurriedly ran towards Dong Huangli. "Ali, don't run around." Dong Huangli hurriedly ran over. "I'm sorry, Aunt Qing. Ali won't run around recklessly anymore." "Aunt Qing, don't run around recklessly too. Be careful of your little brother." "How did Ali know it's the younger brother?" "Hee, Ali can sense it." Dong Huangli rubbed onto Qingya's lower abdomen. This was the connection between their bloodlines. At this moment, a white Bentley drove over from afar. Some people knew who it was when they saw the license plate. I didn't expect Xiao Yi of the Xiao family to appear. Yeah, I heard that the Xiao family was almost finished. I heard about it too, but it seems to be fine now. When Xiao Yi and Xu Nan appeared in front of everyone, everyone was sure that the Xiao family was about to rise again. As long as Xiao Yi didn't die, he would have the strength to lead the Xiao family to the top. Xiao Yi and Xu Nan noticed Song Huang's figure, but they did not talk to each other. Back then, when Xiao Yi was injured, Xu Nan had sought help from Song Huang, but he was rejected. And so, a grudge was formed between them. In the end, Song Huang even came to snatch the xuanhuan sword away from Xiao Yi, and the relationship between Xu Nan and Song Huang had reached the freezing point. However, the two of them also noticed that Xianxia was frowning slightly. Because when I see Xianxia, I will think of that man. When they thought of that man, they would think of Black Robe and those tragic events. But until now, Xiao Yi still doesn't know if the person behind the scenes is Xianxia's man or not. After all, the one who wants to collect the debt is the black gown, and above the black gown is that shadowy person. How could the two of them be that man's subordinates? But why would they help that man collect his debt? Brother Xiao, it's better to believe it. Xu Nan reminded softly. It had to be said that Xu Nan was smarter than Nangong Sini. So, a man's success depended on whether his wife was smart enough. His wife's suggestion might be the beginning of a meteoric rise, of course, it might also be the beginning of a bottomless abyss. Nangong Sini's suggestion was destined to be the result, but Xu Nan's suggestion was more pertinent. Although there was a suspicion of flattery, it was all for her husband's future development. Xiao Yi nodded his head, then brought along his wife and walked towards Xianxia. However, from everyone's point of view, it looked like this was heading towards Song Huang. Xiao Yi actually went to find Saint Doctor? What do you mean? The two of them seem to have a grudge. Is Xiao Yi planning to lower his head? It looks like Xiao Yi has been dealt a heavy blow and has let go of his previous arrogance. Someone finally taught the act tough king a lesson. Everyone's guess was indeed correct. Someone was the one who taught Wang Xiao how to be a new person. However, that person was indeed not Song Huang. Instead, that person was Death Mage. To be more precise, that person was Yi Hua, who no one knew at all. Most probably, after all of them were played to death, they still wouldn't know who the person was in the end. Song Huang stared at Xiao Yi, who was walking towards him, and his expression gradually darkened. Did this Xiao Yi really dare to attack him in public? He wouldn't dare to do such a stupid thing. In actuality, Xiao Yi's strength was not weak. In fact, his strength had even reached the level of an aristocratic family's patriarch. Song Huang's strength was about the same as Xiao Yi's. However, in the end, Xiao Yi possessed the xuanhuan sword. The deterrence brought about by this primordial godly item was extraordinary. Even Song Huang had to weigh his options. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared at the very last moment on that day. He didn't want to fight head-on, as the gains would not make up for the losses. Of course, Xianxia also noticed Xiao Yi. Ever since that day when they gambled, they hadn't seen each other. The scene that happened that night was still fresh in his memory. He had lost quite a bit of money, and in the end, Yi Hua actually got his money back. As for Qing Yutong, she met Xiao Yi once on that day when they were eating fish. At that time, she was disguised as Big Sister, so the current Xiao Yi didn't recognize Qing Yutong. As the two of them got closer and closer, everyone became a little nervous. This was because the two of them had different expressions on their faces, as if a great battle was about to break out. However, what happened next caused everyone to be extremely puzzled. Xiao Yi actually walked past Song Huang. He didn't say a word. Song Huang himself was also stunned. Just now, he had even prepared his speech, but he didn't expect that Xiao Yi would actually walk straight towards him. This damn Xiao Yi, he actually doesn't put me Sage Doctor in his eyes. F***K, this act Wang Xiao still likes to act cool as usual. That's right, look at Sage Doctor's expression, he looks as if he just ate a fly. As expected of Xiao family's family head, this act of acting cool is really good. I don't even give in to him, I only give in to him. However, what happened next caused everyone to be dumbstruck. Because Xiao Yi didn't act cool anymore and instead he lowered his status? Because he actually cupped his hands towards a peerlessly beautiful man, and that appearance of his was very respectful. Xiao Yi walked in front of Xianxia, cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Xiao Qing, I trust that you have been well since we last met." Xiao Qing, hello. Xu Nan, who was at the back, was also incomparably respectful. Xianxia was very puzzled. I still remember that day when I met Xiao Yi while eating fish, he didn't have this kind of attitude. Although he was polite, he still had that arrogant attitude. And look at now, he completely lowered his status and came to greet me. Just what is going on? Qing Yutong was able to guess a bit. It is definitely because of brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is just too charming. Even though he is currently sleeping, he still came over by air. 666. Dong Huangli held onto Qinya's hand and sized Xiao Yi up with her big eyes. Dong Huangli didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Even if Xiao Yi directly kneeled down, Dong Huangli would also feel that it couldn't be any more normal. Mommy receives people's worship every day and Mommy also listens to Daddy's words, which means that Daddy is definitely the biggest, and Mommy Qing is Mommy's best friend, thus Mommy is worthy of being worshipped. Xiao Xiao is being too polite. Qinya said tenderly. She didn't treat Xiao Yi coldly. After all, Qinya wasn't that kind of woman. She appeared to be amiable and approachable. However, if it was Dong Huang Baiji who was here, she wouldn't treat Xiao Yi like that. She who was used to being an empress, other than listening to Yihua, she would have a cold attitude towards everyone, other than the people around Yihua. Song Huang, who was at the side, tightly wrinkled his brows. How does this Qinya know Xiao Yi? And why is this Xiao Yi so respectful towards Qinya? Strange, this is too strange. Could it be that this woman has another identity? That shouldn't be the case. Although Qing family is rich, their family is still at the bottom of the family, and it shouldn't be possible for them to get acquainted with a person like Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi revealed out a polite smile and asked, Xiao Qing's husband didn't come? When Xiao Yi said this sentence, everyone more or less knew what he meant. The reason why Xiao Yi did all of this was because of this woman's husband. If that is the case, who is this woman's husband? To actually be able to make Xiao Yi bow down? Chapter 314. What was certain was that this was an existence that was more pretentious than the act tough King Xiao. Song Huang, who was at the side, was also very curious. This Qinya is pregnant, that means she definitely has a man. Originally, judging from the attitude of Qing family, they weren't satisfied with Qinya's pregnancy. However, judging from the current situation, Qing family still didn't know about the inside story. Yutong, who is your big sister's husband? Song Huang asked Qing Yutong in a low voice. Qing Yutong pursed her lips, then said faintly, My brother-in-law, that is a godlike man. If not, how could he have a woman like my big sister? Song Huang lightly laughed. The godlike man was probably just bragging, but he was definitely a very powerful man. Otherwise Xiao Yi wouldn't act like this. Facts have proven that you should never underestimate your enemy's strength, because when you meet them, it will be too late for regrets. Then why didn't your brother-in-law come today? Song Huang asked curiously. He really wanted to take a look at his brother-in-law. Dong Huangli pouted her mouth and said, Uncle, my daddy is very busy. A child's words carry no harm. Everyone understood what he meant. Others wouldn't even bother coming to such a place. You all are mistaken. If Yihua knew that there were salted fishes competing in saltiness, he would definitely come over to watch the show. In fact, he would even call his subordinates over to watch the show. In the end, he would let them know why they are salted fishes. Qinya carried Dong Huangli into her embrace, then said with a slight smile, And he has been rather busy recently. He silently thought to himself, He's busy giving birth to a child with the empress, this pervert. Xiao Yi took a look at Song Huang, then said to Qinya, Xiao Qing, do you want to go in together with us? Xiao Yi's attitude was one of respect, but in Song Huang's eyes, Xiao Yi's attitude was equivalent to Song Huang tearing down his own face. After all, Qinya and Qing Yutong were brought here by Song Huang himself. Xiao Yi, this isn't a good idea, right? Song Huang said in a deep voice. Since Xiao Yi was prepared to slap his own face, there was no need for him to save face. Xiao Yi slowly turned his head and coldly said, I'm talking to Xiao Qing, when is it your turn to interrupt? The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became gloomy. Everyone held their breath. Would this year's auction be as dull as the previous years? There would probably be a good show to watch. The act tough king had started to lead the tempo. Moreover, he was quite angry. Xiao Yi was indeed very angry. It would have been fine if Song Huang hadn't said anything. But once Song Huang said something like that, he couldn't take it anymore. You actually dared to come and snatch my sword that day. Do you really think that you have a good temper? This emperor has a belly full of anger right now. Qing Yutong felt that she did not come here for nothing today. A good show is about to begin. However, it is a pity that pitiful Zizi, he is locked up at home and tomorrow he still has to go and register to be a primary school student, and he missed out on such a good show. But don't worry, I'll take a picture and send it to her. Let her be envious of me, ha. The little wretch would definitely go crazy with jealousy. When Song Huang heard what Xiao Yi said, his face became terrifyingly gloomy. Xiao Yi, you better watch your mouth. Song Huang, I advise you to not provoke me. Otherwise I will teach you how to save yourself. Xiao Yi gradually released a stream of spiritual qi, and it pressed towards Song Huang. Song Huang couldn't help but furrow his brows when he felt the rich spiritual energy in Xiao Yi's body. Xiao Yi's strength had risen again. With the addition of the xuanhuan sword, he was indeed no match for them. Damn it. Alright, both of you stop talking. Xianxia said faintly while hugging onto Dong Huangli. This sentence that Xianxia said softly was very tasteful, to the point that it was somewhat similar to Dong Huang Baiji's style. I reckon that after staying with Dong Huang Baiji for a long time during those few days, a bit of Empress aura had also been infused into Dong Huang Baiji's body. Furthermore, Dong Huang Baiji's bloodline had also awakened, and this sentence of Dong Huang Baiji's was simply like a huge pressure that made it hard for people to breathe. Everyone who was present felt that Dong Huang Baiji's words were very strange. This woman doesn't have any spiritual chi fluctuation, but the words that she spoke were filled with a sense of majesty, and the words that she spoke were unable to help but make people submit to her. This was the passive power of bloodline. Qing Yutong let out a deep sigh. Big sister is starting to act cool too. My god, when did it become my turn to act cool? This is so painful. In actuality, Yihua loved to see Qingya act cool the most. To be more precise, he loved to see his woman act cool the most. Seeing his woman act cool the most was a kind of visual and auditory enjoyment. Everyone went into a daze for a second, but very quickly they came back to their senses. Xiao Yi naturally wouldn't say anything, and he didn't dare to say anything either. After listening to what his wife said, he would rather believe that it was true. However, Song Huang refused to accept this. I was actually frightened by a woman, and I have lost all of my face. In actuality, everyone felt that they had lost all of their face because they were all shocked by what Qingya had said just now. However, when they thought about that mysterious man, they didn't dare to act recklessly. What if I step on a landmine? It must be said that the way of thinking of these people was very correct. If we were to really provoke Qingya today, we would have to wait for the Supreme Overlord's fury. The powers in the north would have to be completely wiped out. Suddenly, from afar, 3 Maybach formed a motorcade, and Xiao Yi's gaze became serious. Tang family's motorcade has arrived. That's right, I heard that Xiao Yi and Tang Wuxuang have fallen out. Seems like a big fight is going to happen. Everyone discussed in low voices, and Xiao Yi was also listening to what they were saying. Even now, I can still feel the coldness of that knife that was stabbed in the back by my good brother in the past. However, no one would have guessed that Tang Wuxuang's lamp had already been extinguished. Tang Wuxuang could be seen coming down from the car. Tang Wuxuang was wearing a black suit, and he appeared to be very calm. However, everyone discovered that today Tang Wuxuang actually had a beard. In the past, Tang Wuxuang's beard would always be clean, and with a look, Tang Wuxuang had indeed become a bit more manly. Tang Wuxuang was only wearing a fake beard for the sake of concealing himself. Recently, he had been cultivating his master's cultivation technique, and his improvement was indeed very fast. However, the side effects were also very fast. His chest muscles had actually expanded, his hands had become slender, his waist had also become slender, his Adam's apple had also disappeared, and his face was also slowly changing. Recently, his vocal cords had also changed, and it was reckoned that not long later, his voice would become a female's voice. More importantly, the wound healed and became. Every day Tang Wuxuang would be scared awake by himself, and because of this he didn't dare to sleep on the same bed as his wives. After getting off the car, Tang Wuxuang didn't stop. Instead, he walked to the other side of the car and opened the car door. A man in flowery shorts and a white shirt appeared. He was looking at something on his phone with great interest. He was precisely Tang Wuxuang's master, Gui Qingren. The people who were present were very unfamiliar with this man. However, from Tang Wuxuang's actions, they could tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. Master, we've arrived. Tang Wuxuang tried his best to pressure his vocal cords, but he was still able to hear the strangeness in Gui Qingren's voice. Gui Qingren raised his head and took a look, then lowered his head back down to read his novel, as if only the words on the phone were able to attract his attention. Tang Wuxuang looked around for a bit and very quickly he discovered Xiao Yi's figure. The vicious aura within his body unconsciously emitted out. It is precisely because of this bastard that I became a woman. If I don't kill Xiao Yi in this life, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart. Gui Qingren looked at the phone and said faintly, Wuxuang, if you were to make a move here today, it would be very hard for you to clean up the mess. Chapter 315. Therefore, anyone who dared to fight here, unless they had great connections or were members of the other 4 great clans, was nothing to be afraid of. Right now, Qingya pulled her little sister over to her side. I feel that this auction isn't that safe and I have to be a bit more careful. Song Huang walked to the side of the two girls as though he was a flower protector. However, some people felt that this saint doctor was just trying to ride on their popularity. Master, disciple understands. A little impatience will spoil great plans, Gui Qingren said faintly. Because this line of words just happened to appear in the novel, he just casually said it. Yes. When everyone saw that Tang Wuxuang was actually being so respectful, they became even more curious towards this mysterious man who was wearing floral shorts. Brother Xiao, don't act recklessly. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Xuanhuan was also afraid that her husband would act recklessly, so she reminded him softly. Xiao Yi of course knew the pros and cons and patted Xuanhuan's hand. However, looking at Tang Wuxuang who was walking over slowly, Xiao Yi couldn't help but want to directly take out his xuanhuan sword and slash at Tang Wuxuang. And when Tang Wuxuang saw Xiao Yi, he couldn't wait to let Xiao Yi have a taste of himself, the taste of being a woman. This was life. Brothers of the past would turn against each other and even have to kill each other to eliminate the hatred in their hearts. When Tang Wuxuang saw Xianxia who was at the side, he went into a slight daze then greeted, Xiao Qing. Xianxia nodded her head politely. The scene immediately went into an uproar. This Tang Wuxuang didn't pay attention to anyone, and he just had to greet that beauty. Xiao Yi was like that and this Tang Wuxuang was also like that. What exactly is going on? Gui Qingren didn't greet them and didn't even look at the two women. Regarding power and women, Gui Qingren preferred novels. Song Huang felt that he was feeling very apologetic. Everyone was greeting Xianxia and yet they just had to ignore me. Just what is going on today? Uncle, you can't do it. Dong Huangli raised her head and looked towards Song Huang, then said with a childish voice. Children's words were very deadly. Song Huang felt extremely sullen. He had never felt so sullen before. If he had known that things would turn out like this, he wouldn't have brought them along. Xianxia said tenderly, Ali, you cannot be impolite. Oh, uncle, you are the best. Dong Huangli responded, then said to Song Huang. Ultimate kill. Being scolded by a child and then given a candy to comfort you, you still had to face it with a smile. How hurtful. The show was not over yet. At this moment, a fleet of 4 Rolls-Royces arrived. The Bai family is here. Yeah, I didn't expect the Bai family to show up for this auction. It's my honor to meet this northern beauty today. What does it have to do with those 2 women and the northern beauty? That's true. The 4 cars slowly stopped. Wang Debao was the first to get out of the car. He opened the car door for his wife like a little brother. Bai Cixin was wearing a white dress, and her pretty face was covered with a veil, as if she did not want others to see her face. If it was in the past, everyone would think that this veil was very mysterious and classy. But now, why do I feel that wearing this veil on my face is so weird? Look at other people, how beautiful are they? Is there anyone like you? You're still wearing a veil? Bai Cixin, who got out of the car, also seemed to feel that something was wrong. This wasn't the case when she appeared in the past. What was going on? A man and a woman got out of a car behind them. The man was Bai Cixin's younger brother, Bai Qi. He was wearing a black suit and had a delicate face. He looked like a pretty boy and was very handsome. The girl who got out of the car attracted everyone's attention. The girl looked to be in her early 20s. She had jet black hair and a snow-white face. Her clear and beautiful eyes were slightly blue, like pure gems. She had a graceful figure and wore a light red dress. She should have been a pure and beautiful girl, but she gave off a sorrowful aura, making people feel pity for her. Someone in the crowd suddenly recognized the girl. I know who this girl is. One of the wives of the family master exclaimed. The family master shouted in a low voice, lower your voice. It's embarrassing for you to be so surprised. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have brought you out. The wife responded, but she still said, Hubby, didn't the Bai family hold a banquet last month? This girl and her mother were there too. What's so strange about that? Actually, this girl is quite pitiful. I think her mother made Bai Qi a concubine. The family master's expression changed. What? Is it hard for you to be my concubine? The woman stopped talking. Only she could understand the girl's thoughts. What's the girl's name? The family master asked. I think she's called Dongfang Yu. Surname Dongfang? Everyone seemed to have thought of the surname Dongfang. 100 years ago there were 6 big families in the north and Dongfang family was one of them. However, Dongfang family was reported by other big families, and the content of the report was that Dongfang family was secretly hiding an ancient godly item. At that time, the emperor of Voidless Realm was Donghuang Baiji's father. He personally investigated this matter, and as expected, an ancient godly item was found. After all, there was a rule that one could only possess one ancient godly item. Secretly hiding an ancient godly item was a heavy crime, because it was suspected of rebelling. However, at that time Dongfang family cried out that they were being framed. However, rules were rules and there was no evidence to prove their innocence. Thus, Donghuang Baiji's father revoked the title of Dongfang family, executed all the males and released all the females. Dongfang Yuer's grandmother was the only daughter of the family master at that time. In order to keep the surname Dongfang, all the children followed their mother's surname. Dongfang Yuer was the most outstanding one among the younger generation, and thus she decided to gift her to Bai family. However, all of this was not what Dongfang Yuer wanted. However, what else could she do? On the other hand, Bai Qi only accepted Dongfang Yuer because he fancied her appearance. Bai Cixin on the other hand didn't mind. It doesn't matter if my little brother takes in a concubine, but the main wife must be beneficial to Bai family. Marrying a virtuous woman was a very simple principle. Bai Qi, who was standing behind his big sister, stretched out his hand, wanting to hug Dongfang Yuer's waist. However, Dongfang Yuer dodged his hand. This made Bai Qi a little angry. She is already prepared to marry into Bai family, yet you are still acting all high and mighty? Not letting me touch this, not letting me touch that. Do you really think that you are still the Dongfang family of the past? If you were still the Dongfang family, then I, Bai Qi, would have to kneel and lick your boots. However, the current you can only kneel and lick my boots. I have already promised you that I will only make a move on you after you graduate. However, don't force me to be rough, your family's finances are all in my hands. Bai Qi leaned close to Dongfang Yuer and shouted out gravely. This kind of threat was fatal to Dongfang Yuer. Upon seeing this, Bai Qi stretched out his hand and hugged onto Dongfang Yuer's waist, declaring his ownership. Dongfang Yuer was indeed captivating, especially the sense of weakness that was emitted from her bones. It made men feel a strong sense of conquest. Put on a smile, don't be so lifeless, Bai Qi said. Chapter 316. Although everyone at the scene expressed their pity, this was, after all, someone else's Bai family's matter, and they couldn't interfere in it. Wife, that xianxia came as well, Wang Debao said softly. Bai Cixin looked towards the front, and her eyebrows slightly wrinkled. She felt that this xianxia had changed a lot. This xianxia is very beautiful. No wonder everyone had such a reaction when I appeared. In terms of appearance, I am indeed no match for xianxia. Debao, go up and greet her, Bai Cixin said. Logically speaking, Bai Cixin should be feeling jealous. This was the normal rhythm. However, Bai Cixin wasn't an ordinary woman. If not, she wouldn't be able to lead Bai family to this point. It could only be said that Bai Cixin was a very shrewd woman. Although Wang Debao was puzzled, he still listened to his wife's words. That bar owner had always been a mystery, or rather, an enigmatic man. Even his wife had to worry about this point. That's why smart women would do the right thing. Xuanhuan was like this, and Bai Cixin was also like this. This also meant that their sixth sense was correct. There were some people that they really couldn't afford to offend. When everyone saw Bai Cixin walking towards xianxia's direction with her man and little brother, they immediately gasped. Why are all the big shots greeting that woman? Just who is this woman's man? This man didn't even come to the scene, and yet he is already in the limelight. Xianxia didn't recognize Bai Cixin, who was wearing a veil, and she was only a bit curious. People in the cultivation world sure are weird. Mommy Qing, why is this auntie wearing a veil? Is it because she can't see others? Dong Huangli asked curiously. Xianxia smiled slightly. Ali, there are many reasons for wearing a veil, you can't just casually guess. Oh, Ali understands. Dong Huangli nodded her head and stopped guessing. If not, she would seem very rude and lose face for her daddy. Bai Cixin could be seen walking in front of Xianxia and said gently, I have long heard of Xiao Qing's great name. Seeing you today, you are indeed very beautiful. After finished speaking, Bai Cixin stretched out her hand. Xianxia felt a bit awkward. She knows me, but I don't know her. What should I say? If Bai Cixin wasn't wearing a veil, Xianxia might be able to recognize her. After all, Bai Cixin was also a philanthropist, and Xianxia had met her once when she attended the banquet. Xuanhuan said softly, Xiao Qing, this is Bai Cixin from Bai family. However, after Xuanhuan finished speaking, he went into a daze for a moment. Why did I call him Xiao Qing as well? His mind was in a mess. He was a saint doctor. Don't forget his identity. Only then did Xianxia remember about it, and with a slight smile she said, Xiao Bai is being too polite, I don't dare to accept it. As he spoke, he prepared to shake hands with Bai Cixin. "Ah, Mommy Ching, don't, Daddy will be angry," little Ali cried out in alarm. Qingya's body stiffened. Luckily, my fingers did not touch the other party, and Qing Yutong, who was at the side, was currently taking pictures of the evidence. What a traitor. However, upon thinking of that Vinegar King, Qingya smiled helplessly and said, "Xiao Bai, I'm really sorry, my husband doesn't like me touching other people, sorry for my rudeness." Bai Zixin chuckled. "President Qing is so beautiful. If I were a man I would do the same." As expected of the Bai family's patriarch. He could even resolve such an awkward atmosphere. Everyone was impressed. But at the same time he felt that it was inconceivable. Because the child said that Papa would be angry. How could such a beautiful woman be angry? This was simply intolerable. Could it be domestic violence? Call the police. Let the beautiful woman be released. Wang Debao was also impressed by his wife. Under such a situation she was still able to welcome people with a smile. If it was me, I might not be able to hold back from ridiculing her. However, Bai Qi, who was at the back, felt that his sister was being too cautious. This was a great disrespect towards Bai family. Even if Bai Qi was beautiful, he still couldn't tolerate it. Of course, Bai Zixin had her own thoughts. Since her beauty was inferior to the other parties, she had to win in another aspect. However, her magnanimity won everyone's praise, but the other party was different. Would be very rude. However, using Yihua's words, there was no need for my woman to be polite towards a group of salted fishes. After hearing what Yihua said, Qingya smiled sweetly. Immediately, all of the men became distracted. This smile was too beautiful, it was suffocating. My husband is a Vinegar King, he wishes that I could be chained to his side 24/7. Qingya's smile looked very blissful. Everyone was able to feel that, to have a woman like this, how many people did you have to help to cross the road in your previous life? Qing Yutong laughed. Big sister actually became a crazy demon showing off her husband. Incredible, I am also going to become a crazy demon showing off my brother-in-law. That's because Daddy loves Mommy Qing, Dong Huangli said. Here comes another crazy demon showing off her father. This family is incredible. Qingya pinched onto Dong Huangli's little nose. Daddy loves you too. Of course. This was a big family showing off their affection, and all of the single dogs that were present were unable to take it anymore. Dong Fangyuaner, who was standing beside Bai Qi, looked at Qingya blankly. In her heart, she was very envious of this woman. Song Huang, who was standing at the side, was very depressed. Thinking back then, when I appeared, how many people would come over to greet me and fawn over me. This year, everything has completely changed. I have truly shot myself in the foot, the gains do not make up for the losses. Xiao Xiao, long time no see. Bai Zixin shouted out towards Xiao Yi, but she didn't have any intention of stretching out her hand to greet Xiao Yi. Xiao Bai, long time no see. Xiao Yi replied politely. Right now, Xiao Yi no longer had any thoughts towards Bai family. After all, the black gown had already given the order that he wouldn't participate in the aristocratic family's selection. Since that was the case, he didn't have any thoughts of going against Bai family. Qingya noticed Dong Fangyuaner, who was standing beside Bai Qi, and was very curious. This woman who was standing weakly at the side seemed very out of place. From Qingya's point of view, this kind of girl actually shouldn't appear here. After all, this was a place where people would eat people up without spitting out their bones. This is? Qingya asked curiously. Wang Debao smiled and said, This is my brother-in-law's girlfriend. Dong Fangyuan seemed to be very afraid. Her delicate hands tightly grabbed onto her small handbag and didn't dare to look straight at Qingya's gaze. She lowered her head and her delicate body was slightly trembling. Xiao Qing, sorry, this girl hasn't seen much of the world, I have let you see a joke. Wang Debao said apologetically while sighing in his heart. This brother-in-law of mine really wants to bring someone else out today, I am really speechless. Qingya didn't mind and comforted Dong Fangyuan, it's alright, I am still studying at this age. Xiao Qing, she is indeed studying at university right now, after she graduates she will marry into my Bai family. Wang Debao followed his wife's wishes and got familiar with Qingya. Oh? Which university is she studying at? Qingya asked. Bai Qi pulled onto Dong Fangyuaner, who was beside him, and said in a low voice, Xiao Qing is asking you a question, don't be a mute. Hearing what Bai Qi said, Qingya couldn't help but slightly frown, but she didn't say anything. Xiao Qing, I am studying at Zijin University. Dong Fangyuaner lowered her head and said while trembling with fear, just like a frightened rabbit. Right now, Bai Qi also regretted bringing her out. She didn't even give me any face at all, every single sentence she says is filled with death, and she even lowered her head. Doesn't she know that this is very rude? If not for there being a lot of people here, I would have given her a slap. Chapter 317. Senior sister? Dongfang Yuer slowly raised her head. This word sounds very approachable, which allowed Dongfang Yuer to find a trace of warmth in this unfamiliar place. Hello, senior sister. Hello, junior sister. Dongfang Yuer finally revealed out a trace of a smile. This kind of gathering still has a trace of warmth. This big sister is a good person. Although it was just a small conversation in everyone's hearts, they didn't think so. It was as if Dongfang Yuer had found a huge backer. After all, everyone present was a smart person. For this beauty to say such words, there definitely must be some other meaning behind it. It seemed like she was telling Bai family to treat this girl a bit better. Indeed, Xianxia saw that Bai Qi didn't treat this girl well. Perhaps it was out of pity for this girl. Xianxia said a few more words to help this helpless junior martial sister. After all, marrying into a rich and powerful family was as deep as the sea. Bai Cixin also understood what Xianxia meant and said to her brother, Bai Qi, treat Yuer well in the future, understand? I understand, big sister. Bai Qi lowered his head and replied. Seeing that her goal was achieved, Xianxia smiled and said to Bai Cixin, to have such a delicate girlfriend, your brother is so fortunate. Xiao Qing is right, as the big sister I am also very happy. Bai Cixin smiled and said. Although she expressed sympathy, Xianxia didn't have the intention to interfere, she only said a few words. However, to Dongfang Yuer, those few words were already enough, and she silently thanked this senior sister in her heart. Xiao Qing, it's getting late, let's go in. Wang Debao felt that it was about time. Tonight's big show is inside and not outside. Xianxia nodded her head, then walked on the stone bridge while holding Dong Huangli's hand. Qing Yutong will temporarily stop filming here, she will continue filming after they go in. This is so interesting, even brother-in-law missed this show. Song Huang, who was supposed to bring Qing family's sisters here, was actually following behind the two sisters. Don't blame me for not giving you face then. After passing through the stone bridge, everyone arrived at Yuan Linglong's main hall. The auction was about to begin. A lot of people were still waiting in the main hall. Various family heads were chatting with each other, and there were all kinds of beauties surrounding them. To put it bluntly, in this kind of banquet, there were basically no ordinary beauties. All of them were first-class beauties. After all, they were the family heads' women. However, when Xianxia and the others walked in, all the men in the main hall stopped chatting and looked at Qing Yutong and Qing Yutong, ignoring Bai Cixin. These two women are really indescribably beautiful. However, the people in the main hall did not know what had just happened outside. If they saw it, they would be even more amazed. At this moment, Qin Xuanzong was among them as well. He was currently building up a good relationship with the family heads. After all, rather than having one more enemy, it was better to have one less. His first glance wasn't on Xianxia, but on Xiao Yi, the man who exterminated his entire family. As a devil emperor, Qin Xuanzong really wanted to charge over and slay Xiao Yi on the spot. However, his rationality still prevailed. He couldn't do that right now. By Qin he Yi of Yu, who of Qin became Petrid. When he became PPPP Qin Yu of Qin. Of heart of Qing Yi became more Yu's beauty, of Fang Yu of Xianxia. Since time has returned, I Qin Xuanzong will never abandon you again. Li of Qing Fang Li muttered. Mother of Dong. Fang. Dong Huangli mumbled. In actuality, her eyes were already staring at the dessert at the side, and her saliva was about to flow out. Xianxia rubbed onto Dong Huangli's stomach. You ate so much tonight, you are still hungry? And Ali's body is still growing, Dong Huangli said pitifully. Xianxia had no choice but to bring Dong Huangli to eat, then said to everyone, I will bring my child to eat something. Everyone nodded their heads politely, then began to win over the hearts of the people, especially Xiao Yi. A huge change happened to the family, and it was time to greet those people who left the family. Right now, Song Huang was also surrounded by a group of people who were calling him Sage Doctor. He finally found his sense of belonging. Otherwise, if he were to stand together with those two women, his limelight would be snatched away. However, if he were to chase after Qing Yutong right now, he wouldn't be able to put down his face. The two sisters came to the side of the dessert. Qing Yutong casually picked up a piece of cake and ate it with Dong Huangli. From time to time, Qing Yutong would tease little Ali, making Dong Huangli pout. Xianxia. A warm voice rang out. Xianxia went into a daze for a moment, then slowly turned around. A tall and handsome man could be seen in front of Xianxia, who had a gentle smile on his face. Qing Yutong and Dong Huangli looked towards the man who suddenly appeared. "You are?" Xianxia asked confusedly. Qin Xuanzong said with a smile, "Xianxia, don't you remember me?" Xianxia didn't have a good impression of this kind of man. She said faintly, "Why should I remember you?" Qin Xuanzong felt that this kind of opening was very awkward. However, thinking about it, back then I was still a fatty, it's normal for me to not remember. In actuality, there were a lot of family heads who wanted to go up and strike up a conversation with Xianxia, but Xianxia's aura was very strong, and coupled with that mysterious husband of hers, they stopped. However, now that there was a man who was testing the lightning, everyone was still paying attention to him. Qing Yutong still doesn't know about these men? If brother-in-law were to find out about this, wouldn't he break all 4 of these men's limbs? "Hey, are you trying to woo my big sister?" Qing Yutong said in a joking manner. "As the sister-in-law of brother-in-law, I have to look after my big sister well. Of course, when I want to stir up trouble, I still have to stir up trouble. If not, how can my boring life be interesting?" Qin Xuanzong looked towards Qing Yutong and was unable to recognize her. After all, Qing Yutong's appearance was off the charts, but her temper was still the same. "Mommy Qing, this uncle looks like a bad person, let's ignore him." Dong Huangli pulled onto the corner of Qingya's clothes, and her face was very vigilant. She couldn't wait to call her daddy over right now to beat up this bad person. What Dong Huangli said was right, Qin Xuanzong wasn't a good person. After all, he was a demon emperor, and his hands were stained with blood. However, right now Qin Xuanzong was very depressed. "I haven't even acknowledged him yet, and I am already labeled as a bad person." Qingya carried Dong Huangli into her embrace and said coldly, "Please leave, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite." Qin Xuanzong didn't know what to say. I remember that in the past, although Qingya was cold and indifferent, she was still gentle. However, right now she doesn't seem to be like the Qingya in the past. "Oh, just now this child called me mommy. This is impossible." You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.